I've been with her for years.
Hey. It's okay. Everything is gonna be okay.
The air inside St. Mark's Cathedral in downtown Chicago felt thick with anticipation. Rows of guests shifted in their seats, adjusting outfits, clearing throats, whispering to one another as though they were warming up for a live performance. The walls held decades of memories, weddings, graduations, community celebrations, but none of them felt as extravagant as the one unfolding today. Eli Turner stood at the altar, eyes fixed on the double wooden doors at the back of the sanctuary. His tailored suit rested neatly against his shoulders, not a wrinkle out of place. His hair had been slicked back by a stylist an hour earlier, but now a single strand had drifted out of formation as if even it sensed his unease. He clasped his hands together, unclasped them, clasped them again. His best man whispered, "Relax, man. She's coming." Eli forced a small nod, but it barely settled the rapid beat rising in his chest. He had walked into boardrooms with executives twice his age, negotiated deals worth millions, and handled conference headlines with ease. But standing here, waiting for the woman he thought he'd spend his life with, brought a different kind of pressure, one that made his ribs feel tight. The organist shifted into the next note. The guests hushed. Phones rose discreetly, ready to capture the first step of the bride's walk. Eli swallowed hard, straightening himself. The doors opened. A few guests gasped softly. She appeared. His bride stood in the doorway in a white gown that shimmered under the cathedral lights. Her father stood beside her, offering his arm. She looked elegant, composed, graceful, everything he expected. But something felt off. He couldn't name it yet, but her shoulders looked stiffer than usual. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Still, Eli's heart softened at the sight. This was the woman he had fallen for. This was the moment he had been preparing for emotionally and mentally. The moment he believed would change the direction of his life. She stepped forward with her father. 1 step, 2 steps. Guests lifted their phones a little higher. People murmured with excitement. Whispers buzzed along the rows like short electric sparks. Eli held his breath. Her father placed her hand into his, offering a supportive nod before sitting down. Eli squeezed her hand gently, relieved to finally have her in front of him. "You look beautiful," he whispered. She nodded, but didn't smile fully. "Eli." Her voice was tight, tighter than he'd ever heard it. His stomach sank. Before he could respond, she took 2 steps back. The whispers turned sharper. The maid of honor blinked rapidly. One of the guests lowered her phone slowly, unsure of what she was seeing. Eli stepped forward. "Are you okay?" She shook her head, then leaned closer so only he could hear. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I can't do this." The words sliced straight through him. He froze. His breath hitched. His mind went blank. "What?" He barely got the word out. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I can't go through with this." His heart hammered against his chest. She wasn't raising her voice. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She was simply finished, completely done, as if this moment, this day, meant nothing more to her than stepping out of a meeting she wasn't interested in attending. A guest gasped loudly. Someone in the back whispered, "Is this real?" The officiant stepped forward, unsure if he should intervene. Eli felt the room tilt. The pressure in his chest grew heavier. "Can we talk about this?" he asked quietly, trying to steady himself. She shook her head again. "There's nothing to fix. I shouldn't have come this far. I knew it weeks ago. Weeks." The word echoed in his head like sirens. He felt hands reaching out, his best man, his father, both trying to approach him, but he stepped back from them instinctively. His bride turned away, slowly, calmly, firmly. Eli stood there, completely still, watching the path she had walked just moments ago. She moved through it again, but in reverse. Past the guests, past the pews, past the phones that stopped recording and started flipping to message screens, past the whispers that had turned heavier, more stunned. He didn't chase her. He didn't call her name. He didn't move. He stayed at the altar like a man glued to stone. His father moved closer. "Eli." But the sound of his father's voice snapped something inside him. He blinked once, then twice. His vision blurred. His chest tightened. It felt like a wave crashed against his ribs from the inside, pushing everything out of place. This wasn't happening. Not today. Not like this. The officiant tilted his head sympathetically. The guests looked around, confused, unsettled, waiting for someone to declare what should happen next. Eli turned around, took 3 steps backward, then quietly walked toward the side of the church. "Eli," his father called sharply. "Where are you going? We need to handle." Handle. The word made Eli's jaw clench. Handle what? His heartbreak? His public humiliation? The media waiting outside? He ignored every voice calling after him. He reached the side door, an unused exit near the storage area. He pushed it open without hesitation. Cold air hit him immediately. Quiet. Stillness. He stepped out into the small service lane behind the cathedral. No guests, no cameras, no organ music, no whispers, just silence. He didn't know where he was walking. His feet simply moved. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him with each step. His phone buzzed in his pocket. His father again. His best friend. His PR team. The list kept growing. He turned the phone off. He kept walking. Downtown Chicago towered around him, but he barely saw any of it. He walked block after block, turning corners without thinking. Cars moved past. Strangers brushed by. But he felt disconnected from everything. His mind replayed the scene at the altar over and over. Her voice, her face, her calmness. It felt like a bruise spreading inside him, deep and unavoidable. After nearly 10 minutes of walking, he reached a quieter street, less traffic, fewer people. A laundromat stood on the corner with its lights humming softly behind the front windows. He slowed his steps without knowing why. His throat tightened. His breathing struggled. He reached the narrow side walkway behind the laundromat, seeking a quiet place to pull himself together. But he didn't pull himself together. His knees bent on their own. He lowered himself to the ground, hands covering his face. The pressure in his chest cracked open fully. A sound escaped him, raw, strained, painful. A sob. A grown man, in a suit worth more than some people's monthly salary, broke apart alone behind a laundromat where no one could see him. His heart had been dealt a blow he didn't know how to process. He leaned his back against the brick wall, elbows on his knees. He tried to breathe, tried to tell himself he'd be okay, but the moment replayed too fast, too vividly. The ring, the vows, the guests, the abrupt retreat. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. He pressed his palms harder against his face. Another breath, another ache, another moment of silence collapsing around him. Eli Turner, CEO, public figure, tech prodigy, was nowhere in sight, just a man who had been left behind, a man who didn't know what to do next. He didn't hear the soft footsteps approaching. He didn't notice the shift of air behind him. He didn't realize someone had stopped nearby, watching the tremor in his shoulders. He thought he was alone, but he wasn't. Not anymore. The rain had softened into a steady drizzle, tapping gently against the pavement behind Lakeview Laundromat. The scent of detergent drifted faintly from the back vents, warm and familiar, contrasting sharply with the cold air outside. For most people, this narrow walkway was nothing but a shortcut to skip the main street. For Eli Turner, it had become the place where everything inside him fell apart. His suit, once crisp and pressed, was now soaked through. Raindrops clung to the fabric, tracing lines down his sleeves. His hair, styled hours ago for a celebration, now hung loosely across his forehead. He rested his elbows on his knees, head bowed, fingers pressed against his eyes as if holding back the world's pressure. He didn't hear the back door open. He didn't hear footsteps. He didn't hear the soft hum of someone breathing nearby. What he felt was the kind of exhaustion that reached bone deep. The exhaustion. That comes only when something you believed in collapses without warning. The door behind him swung open again, this time louder. Amira Caldwell stepped out, holding a trash bag from her aunt's laundromat. Her break had started a few minutes earlier. She wanted a moment of quiet air before going back in to help with folding and wiping down counters. It had been a long morning. She had worked an overnight shift at the hospital before coming here to help her aunt on the side. Her feet were sore. Her back ached. Her head was heavy from lack of sleep. But the moment she stepped into the walkway, she stopped mid-stride. Someone was there. A man in a drenched suit, sitting on the ground, body shaking slightly. She blinked, her instinct kicking in faster than her logic. He wasn't just sad. He wasn't just disappointed. He was hurting deeply, so deeply that she could feel it in the way his shoulders rose and fell in uneven patterns, As a nursing assistant, she had seen heartbreak in many forms, families receiving devastating news, parents grieving their fears, children clinging to hope. She recognized pain the way musicians recognize notes. But this, a grown man alone behind a laundromat, in the rain, with no umbrella and no sense of the world around him, this wasn't ordinary. She stepped closer without making a sound at first. Her eyes softened as she took in the sight. Her chest tightened. Something, call it intuition or compassion, moved inside her, nudging her forward. "Hey," she said softly, careful not to startle him. Eli didn't look up. She tried again, walking closer. "Hey, are you hurt?" His breath wavered, but he didn't answer. Rain collected on his blazer, forming dark patches. His hands trembled slightly against his forehead. Amira set the trash bag aside and knelt a few feet away from him. Her scrubs were damp from the light drizzle, but she didn't care. "Sir, I don't know what happened, but you shouldn't be out here alone." Still no answer. For a moment, she considered calling someone, but then she looked at him again, the way he was holding himself, the rawness of his silence, the way his knees drew inward as if trying to contain something too heavy to carry. Calling someone wouldn't help. She pressed her hand gently onto the pavement, grounding herself, then moved closer. "Hey, can you look at me?" Eli lifted his head slightly, just enough for her to see his eyes. Red, wet, lost. He opened his mouth, but only a broken breath emerged. That was enough for Amira. She shifted closer, voice softer. "You don't have to talk right now. Just breathe." He wiped his face with the back of his hand, embarrassed, as if he needed to apologize for his grief. His voice cracked. He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." "You don't have to apologize," she whispered. Not for feeling something. Her words surprised him. Not because of what she said, but because of how genuine they sounded. There was no judgment, no impatience, no rush for an explanation, just human concern. A moment passed. The rain continued its steady rhythm. Amira extended her arms slowly, giving him space to choose. At first he just stared at her hands, then her face, then her hands again. He didn't move. He didn't lean forward. He didn't reach out, but his shoulders dropped slightly, as if her presence alone eased the weight pressing against him. Amira's voice lowered. "Come here, if you want." Something inside him gave way. Eli leaned forward, not all at once, but in small, hesitant inches. When his forehead finally rested against her shoulder, his entire body trembled. A breath that had been trapped in his chest finally pushed out, a broken, painful release. Amira wrapped her arms around him tightly, supporting him through the storm inside. He didn't have to say a word. She didn't ask him to. She just held him, steady and firm. His grief poured out quietly. His chest rose and fell unevenly. His fingers clutched the side of her scrub top, as though holding on to the only thing keeping him balanced. Amira kept her voice low. "You're okay. I've got you." Eli didn't know why her kindness hit him so deeply. Perhaps because she wasn't part of his life. She wasn't from his world. She didn't approach him with expectations or motives. She simply saw a man hurting and chose to show up. They stayed like that for several long moments while the rain softened around them. Her warmth contrasted with the cold around him, grounding him in a way he didn't expect. When his breathing began to settle, he pulled back slightly, not completely, just enough to look at her. His voice was rough. I didn't know where else to go." "You came here," she said softly. "And that's okay." He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. She wiped a stray droplet from his cheek with her thumb, gentle and unhurried. "I don't know what you went through, but you don't deserve to sit out here alone." Eli glanced down at his soaked clothes. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Today wasn't supposed to happen like this. Amira could tell the pain was still fresh, still stabbing, but she didn't push for details. Instead, she rose to her feet and extended her hand. "Come inside for a minute," she said. "It's warm in there. You can dry off." He hesitated only a second. Then he took her hand. Her grip was firm and grounding. As she helped him stand, he exhaled shakily. His suit dripped rainwater onto the concrete. His shoes were soaked. But for the first time since stepping out of that cathedral, he didn't feel like he was collapsing. Amira led him inside, holding the door as he entered. Warmth washed over him instantly. Fluorescent bulbs lit the laundromat in familiar tones. Machines hummed steadily along the walls. Amira's aunt glanced up for a moment, recognized her niece, then returned to folding towels without question. Amira gestured toward an empty folding table. "Sit here. I'll get you a towel." Eli nodded. He took a slow breath, taking in the room. This wasn't where he expected to be. Not hours after a wedding that never happened. Not after being left with so many questions. Not after walking away from the life he thought he knew. But the warmth of the laundromat felt strangely comforting. The stranger who found him felt like someone meant to cross his path. As Amira returned with a towel, she handed it to him gently. "You're safe here," she said. For the first time all day, his eyes softened, not from pain, but from the faintest spark of relief. She didn't know him. He didn't know her. But something about this moment felt important. As the rain slowed outside, Amira leaned against the counter, watching him breathe through the storm inside him. This was the moment their story began. Not with romance, not with fate, but with compassion. Because sometimes life sends the right person at the exact moment you need them most. Amira stood there quietly as Eli held the towel, and she offered the final line that would define everything that followed. Sometimes the person meant to save you appears in the most unexpected place. Bestie, hit that like button so YouTube recommends this story to more people. Your engagement helps this channel grow. Warm air wrapped around Eli the moment he stepped inside. The hum of washing machines filled the space with a steady, comforting rhythm. Nothing fancy. Nothing staged. Just a simple neighborhood laundromat doing what it did every day. It felt oddly grounding compared to the chaos he had walked away from. The overhead lights glowed softly, giving the room a gentle warmth that contrasted with the drizzle outside. A row of dryers rumbled quietly, and the faint scent of fresh detergent drifted through the space. Amira closed the door behind them and wiped the rain from her arms. She glanced toward the counter where her aunt sorted towels, then motioned for Eli to sit on the folding table near the window. "You can sit there," she said softly. "It's sturdy." He nodded and sat, the wooden table creaking slightly under his weight. His suit clung to him, heavy from the rain, droplets falling to the linoleum floor. Amira stepped into a small supply closet and returned with a clean towel. "Here," she said, handing it to him gently. "You're freezing." He took the towel with shaky hands. "Thank you." She nodded, leaning back against the counter near him, not too close, not too far. Enough to offer presence without applying pressure. Silence lingered between them, not uncomfortable but unfamiliar. Eli dabbed the towel against his hair and face, avoiding his eyes in the reflective window beside him. "You sure you're okay?" she asked quietly. "Not really," he admitted, voice low. "Do you want water? Tea? Something warm?" He paused. "Maybe just a moment to breathe." She nodded again. "Take all the time you need." Amira didn't pry. She didn't bombard him with questions. She simply stayed close enough for him to know he wasn't alone. The machines continued their steady hum. The rhythm was comforting, almost like background music for two people who had no idea how much this moment would eventually mean. Eli finally lowered the towel and exhaled through his nose. "I'm sorry you had to find me like that." "You don't have to apologize," she replied. "Everyone breaks sometimes." He looked up, surprised by how easily she said it. As if she meant it. As if she understood. "Most people would have walked by," he said. "I wasn't raised like that." Her voice warmed slightly. "My family taught me to check on people, even strangers." The thought made something inside him tighten, not painfully this time, but in a way that reminded him he still had a heart that could feel. He studied her for a moment. Her scrubs were damp at the knees from kneeling beside him. Her hair, pulled into a puff, still had raindrops clinging to the edges. She looked tired, clearly coming off a long shift, but somehow still gentle enough to meet him where he was. "You didn't even ask my name," he said. "I figured you'd tell me when you were ready." Eli blinked slowly at the simplicity of that answer. No expectations. No assumptions. No pressure. "I'm Eli," he finally said. She nodded. "I'm Amira. Nice to meet you, even under these wild circumstances." A small breath escaped him. Not a laugh. He wasn't ready for that. But it was the closest he'd come to relief all day. "You handled all that outside like you knew exactly what to do," he said. She shrugged. "Working in a hospital teaches you a lot about people, especially how to be present when someone's hurting." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I guess that makes sense. Do you want to take off the jacket?" she asked. It's soaked through. He hesitated, then slowly slipped out of it. She took it from him and draped it over a dryer door, letting the warmth pass through lightly. Should help a little, she said. He watched her move, calm, steady, unbothered by his status or his broken posture. The machines hummed on. The rain outside softened. A lingering ache in his chest eased just enough for him to breathe normally. It was the first moment since the altar that his world didn't feel like it was collapsing. Amira leaned against the counter again. "You don't have to talk," she said quietly. "But you can." He looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time with something resembling trust. "Maybe I will," he said, voice shaky but honest. A soft nod from her. "We'll take it slow." And for the first time today, he believed he might be able to. Eli rubbed his palms together, trying to gather enough strength to say what he hadn't spoken aloud yet. The words sat in his throat like stones. Amira stepped a little closer, not crowding him, just offering presence. "You can start wherever you need." He took a breath. "I was supposed to get married today." The air between them stilled, not heavy, just honest. Amira didn't flinch. She didn't widen her eyes or jump to conclusions. She simply let him continue. "She started walking down the aisle," he said slowly, and halfway there she stopped. Amira's expression softened, her empathy immediate. "She whispered that she couldn't continue," he added quietly. "Right there, in front of everyone." Amira exhaled softly, her chest tightening for him. "I'm really sorry." She didn't cry. She didn't run. She just ended it, calmly, like she was canceling a dinner reservation. His voice cracked. "I didn't know what to say." "You weren't supposed to know," Amira replied gently. "No one expects something like that." Eli stared down at his hands. It felt like the ground disappeared. "Of course it did." He swallowed. "I walked out the side door. I didn't even think. I just left. And you ended up here." He nodded. Silence rested again, but this time it carried connection. Amira stepped closer and rested her hand on the table beside him. Her voice lowered. "Thank you for trusting me with that. I know it's not easy." He looked at her, eyes glassy but no tears left to fall. "I don't know why I'm telling you all this. You needed someone to hear you," she said. No judgment, no pressure, just someone who cares. He inhaled sharply, touched by the sincerity in her tone. "Today wasn't supposed to be this," he murmured. "No one plans for heartbreak," she said softly. He studied her again, the calmness in her stance, the gentleness in her voice. Her presence didn't demand anything from him. It simply steadied him. "You're good at this," he whispered. She smiled faintly. "I just try to show up for people." The laundromat's hum continued around them. A dryer beeped softly, signaling a finished cycle, but Amira didn't move toward it. She stayed with him. "I keep thinking about what I did wrong," Eli confessed. "Why she didn't tell me earlier, why she even walked toward me if she already knew." "You didn't fail," Amira said with conviction. "Someone else's fear isn't your responsibility." He blinked, letting the words land. No one in his world had said anything close to that. "I wish I believed that," he said. "One day you will." For a long moment, they simply sat there, sharing a silence that didn't need to be filled. This was their first real moment of connection, raw, honest, human. Amira's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it at first, not wanting to interrupt his moment, but it buzzed again, then again, a persistent rhythm she couldn't dismiss. "Sorry," she whispered, pulling it out to silence the notifications. Her thumb brushed the screen. Her eyes widened slightly. A headline filled the top of her feed. Millionaire CEO left at the altar. Groom disappears after shocking ceremony halt. The article preview displayed a blurry photo of Eli's ceremony. His name sat bold under the headline, Eli Turner, tech founder, public figure. Amira's eyes lifted slowly. He noticed her shift in expression and stiffened. "You saw it," he murmured. She nodded. "I didn't know." "I figured you didn't," he replied quietly. "Most people recognize me immediately. You didn't." Her voice didn't change. Her posture didn't change. "Does it matter?" she asked. He swallowed. "It usually does." "Well, not here." He stared at her, trying to understand how she could say that so simply. "You're still the same person I found outside," she added. "A hurting man who needed someone." He exhaled, a mixture of relief and disbelief. "People don't usually treat me like this." I'm not people. I'm Amira. Her tone was steady, not impressed, not intimidated, just grounded. That headline didn't change what just happened between us, she said. You trusted me. That means more to me than whatever your title says. He looked down at his hands again, overwhelmed by her consistency, the way she didn't shift once she learned his status. So, she said gently, do you want to keep talking or take a break? Eli lifted his eyes, the faintest trace of hope settling in. I want to keep talking. She nodded. Then we will. The hum of the laundromat continued, steady as ever. The rain outside softened even more, tapping lightly against the glass door. A quiet moment passed before Amira added, tell me in the comments if you think Amira should keep talking to him or keep her distance. She smiled at him. Second CTA, she whispered, jokingly. And for the first time that day, Eli almost smiled. The next afternoon welcomed a rare stretch of calm in Chicago. Lake Michigan shimmered beneath soft daylight, and the walking path along the shore filled with joggers, strollers, and families enjoying the easy breeze. Seagulls circled overhead. The smell of water mixed with the faint scent of street vendors selling pretzels and hot dogs near the park entrance. Amira arrived 10 minutes early. Her hair was pulled into a neat puff, her scrubs replaced by jeans, sneakers, and a light jacket. She wasn't dressed to impress. She wasn't sure this moment required anything but her honesty. Still, her stomach fluttered as she paced near the benches, replaying the night before in her mind. She had found a man broken behind a laundromat. She had held him through one of the worst moments of his life. She had listened to his story, watched him gather himself, and seen vulnerability most people hide. And he had asked to see her again. She didn't know what that meant, not yet. But she knew she wanted to understand why she'd felt drawn to his pain, and why his voice lingered in her mind long after he'd left. Her phone buzzed. I'm almost there. Eli. Amira inhaled slowly, grounding herself. Minutes later, she saw him walking toward her from the pathway near the street. He wore a simple gray sweatshirt, dark jeans, and clean sneakers, not the tailored suit she met him in. His hair fell naturally, no styling, no polish, just him as he was. He looked different today, not broken, not entirely steady either, more like a man trying to rebuild himself. He slowed as he approached her, hands in his pockets. Hi, he said softly. Hi, she replied, giving him a small smile. They stood there for a moment, the lake breeze brushing between them. Neither of them rushed the moment. They simply adjusted to seeing each other outside of yesterday's storm. Thank you for coming, Eli said. Amira nodded. You asked, and I thought it was important. He swallowed, relieved. I wasn't sure you'd say yes. I wasn't sure either, she admitted. But something told me I should. A quiet warmth spread in his chest. Do you want to walk? She asked. He nodded, and they began strolling along the lakeside path, keeping a comfortable distance between them. The sound of waves tapping the rocks created a natural rhythm beneath their footsteps. Eli glanced at her, then back at the path. I barely slept last night. I'm not surprised. He let out a breath. I just kept thinking how everything I thought I had suddenly wasn't real. Amira nodded slowly. That's a lot to sit with. It is, he said. But what happened last night, talking to you, it helped more than I can explain. Her eyes softened. Sometimes people just need a safe place to let things out. You were that for me, he said quietly. She looked ahead, letting the words settle. She didn't know how to respond, not because it made her uncomfortable, but because she wasn't used to being the person someone leaned on so quickly. They walked a little further before she said, I didn't expect you to reach out so soon. I didn't plan on it, he admitted. But waking up today, it felt wrong not to. Why? He took a moment before answering. Because yesterday, when everything fell apart, you didn't treat me like a headline. You didn't treat me like a CEO or some public figure. You treated me like a person. You are a person, she said plainly. He stopped walking for a moment, letting that truth soak in. So much of his life was wrapped in status, responsibility, image, and here she was, reminding him that beneath all of that, he was still just a man who felt deeply. They continued their walk. I don't expect anything from you, she said. I'm not sure where this goes, but I'm here to listen. That's all I can offer today. That's more than enough, he replied. For a moment, the afternoon light hit the water in a soft shimmer. Joggers passed by. A little girl fed ducks along the fence. An older couple held hands as they walked. It was a normal day. A simple day. A day Eli desperately needed. As they reached the far end of the path, he turned to her. "Yesterday, everything in my life collapsed," he said. "But meeting you, it didn't feel like part of the collapse." "What did it feel like?" she asked quietly. He took his time answering. "Like the first moment I could breathe." Her chest tightened, not in romance, but in empathy. Real empathy. The kind that grows roots slowly, without forcing anything. "Let's just see where things go," she said. "No expectations." "No expectations," he repeated, grateful. For the first time all day, she smiled fully. That moment marked the beginning of something neither of them planned, but neither of them wanted to walk away from. They found a bench near the water. The breeze picked up slightly, brushing past them as they sat side by side with comfortable space between them. Eli leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why did you help me yesterday? Really?" Amira didn't rush the answer. "Because I saw someone hurting, and I've learned that when you're hurting, the last thing you need is to be left alone." He nodded slowly. "What about you?" she asked. "Do you have anyone who shows up for you like that? Family, friends?" He hesitated. "My father, he means well. But feelings aren't something he's comfortable with. Everything has to be handled quickly, quietly, efficiently. It's not his fault, it's just who he is. And your friends?" He sighed. "Most of the people around me are tied to business, not personal life. They're good at celebrating my wins, not so much my struggles." Amira understood that far more than he realized. "What about you?" he asked gently. "Who shows up for you?" "My mom," she said with a soft smile. "She's my anchor, strongest woman I know. Raised me and my younger cousin by working 2 jobs. She tells me every day to lead with kindness but protect my peace." "She sounds wise." "She is," Amira said. "And my aunt, she owns the laundromat. She's always believed that our purpose isn't just what we do for money, but how we show up for people." He nodded, impressed. "You come from a strong family." "We've had our struggles," she said honestly. "Financial limits, long hours, worrying about bills, figuring out how to survive. But we stay together. We support each other. It sounds grounding," he said. "It is," she replied. He sat with that for a moment, realizing how different their worlds were, yet how natural it felt to listen to her speak. "What about you?" she asked. "Before yesterday, what did life look like for you?" Eli stared at the lake. "Busy, structured. Everything in my life has a system. Meetings, plans, travel. I built my career fast, and once I got to a certain point, everything became about maintaining it." "Did you like that life?" He thought deeply before answering. "Parts of it. But I think I confused success with fulfillment." She nodded slowly. "That happens to a lot of people. And after yesterday, I'm seeing how empty some of it was." "Not empty," she corrected. "Just missing something." He looked at her, grateful for how she framed it. "Maybe you're right." Silence settled again, warm and open. "So what do you want now?" Amira asked quietly. "Clarity," he said, "and a chance to figure out who I am outside of everything I built." "That's a good place to start." The words didn't solve his pain, but they softened it, giving him something to hold on to. Their connection didn't bloom quickly. It didn't spark like lightning. It grew slowly, honestly, in the way 2 adults begin to understand each other without pressure or expectations. This wasn't romance, not yet. It was something deeper first, trust. As the sun began to lower, the lake shifted into softer shades. Families started packing up, joggers slowed their pace, and the path thinned out. Amira checked her phone. "I should start heading home. I have another shift early tomorrow." "Let me walk you," Eli offered. She hesitated, not out of fear, but out of carefulness. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he said. "I'd like to." She nodded. They walked along the sidewalk toward the bus stop, and then continued through the neighborhood. The area was lively with corner stores, small restaurants, and families sitting on stoops. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real, full of life, noise, and everyday rhythm. "This is where you grew up?" he asked. "Nearby," she replied. "It's not perfect, but it's home." "I like it," he said. She looked at him with a slight smile. "Most people who come from your world don't say that. I'm not sure what my world even is anymore." "That's not a bad thing," she said. They turned onto her street. Children played basketball in a driveway. A woman watered her plants. A teenager skateboarded past them. It was the kind of neighborhood Eli didn't visit often, but something about it felt grounding. When they reached her building, she stopped at the bottom of the steps. "This is me," she said. He nodded slowly. "Thank you for today." "Thank you for coming," she replied. A comfortable pause settled between them. He rubbed his palms lightly against his jeans. "I don't want to assume anything. I know your life is full, and I know mine is complicated right now, but I'd like to see you again, if that's okay." She didn't look away. "It's okay." Something warm moved through him. "Let's take it slow," she added. "One day at a time." "I like that," he said. "A lot." Another pause. Not awkward, just thoughtful. "Well," she said softly. "Good night, Eli." "Good night, Amira." He stepped back as she walked up the stairs. When she reached the top, she glanced over her shoulder and gave him a small, warm smile before disappearing inside. Eli remained on the sidewalk for a moment, letting the evening air wash over him. For the first time since everything fell apart, he felt something new forming, something steady, careful, and real. Not love yet, not anything too big, just the beginning of a possibility, and that was enough. Morning sunlight stretched through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Eli's penthouse, filling the room with a brightness that contrasted sharply with the heaviness inside him. He had barely eaten since yesterday. He had showered, but even the warm water hadn't washed off the sting of being abandoned at the altar. His phone buzzed relentlessly on the marble countertop. Missed calls, text messages, emails. Most of them were from his father. Eli wasn't ready to face any of it, but he knew he couldn't avoid the inevitable confrontation forever. He took a deep breath, grabbed his phone, and opened the last message. "This is unacceptable. Call me now." He exhaled slowly, then hit dial. His father answered immediately, voice sharp. "Eli, what were you thinking disappearing like that? Do you know what kind of mess we're dealing with?" Eli closed his eyes. "Dad, I wasn't thinking about PR. I was—" "You should have been," his father snapped. "You walked out in front of hundreds of guests and the press. The media is calling nonstop. Our partners want a statement. You cannot vanish during a crisis." "I didn't vanish," Eli said, voice low. "I needed air." "That's not how leaders behave." Eli's jaw tightened. He sat at the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees. "I wasn't trying to be a leader yesterday. I was a man whose wedding fell apart in front of him." His father paused, caught off guard by the directness. Eli continued, "I'm not doing a press conference. I'm not issuing a scripted apology. I'm not going to pretend everything's fine." "That is precisely what you need to do," his father insisted. "Control the story before someone else controls it." Eli stood and walked toward the window, staring at the skyline. "The story is simple. I got left at the altar. There's nothing to spin." His father scoffed. "You sound emotional." "That's because I am emotional," Eli responded sharply. "And I'm tired of acting like I'm not allowed to be." Another pause, a deeper one this time. His father's voice softened only slightly. "Look, I know it hurt, but disappearing afterward was irresponsible. The world is watching. Let them watch," Eli whispered. "I'm done performing." "You don't get that luxury," his father replied. "Not with your status." Eli swallowed hard. "Dad, yesterday wasn't about status. It was about me as a person, and I'm done burying my feelings for the sake of image." His father tried again. "We need to plan next steps. Put out a statement saying it was a mutual decision. Make it dignified." "It wasn't mutual," Eli said. "I'm not lying to protect anyone. That's not the point. The point is—" "No," Eli interrupted. "The point is that I'm not letting this be treated like a company misstep. My heart isn't a business transaction." Silence. Heavy. Still. His father finally spoke. "So what now?" "What now," Eli said, "is me figuring out how to be honest with myself for once." His father sighed sharply. "I'm coming over. We need to talk face to face." Eli shook his head, even though his father couldn't see him. "I'm busy today." "Doing what?" Eli hesitated only a second. "Living my life." He didn't want to mention Amira, not because he wanted to hide her, but because he refused to let his father turn her into another variable to manage. "I'll call you later," Eli said. His father's tone hardened again. "Eli," but he had already ended the call. Eli placed the phone down and pressed his palms against the counter. He exhaled deeply, feeling something inside him shift. Yesterday broke him. Today forced him to look at himself plainly. Tomorrow, he didn't know yet. But one thing was clear. He was done letting other people dictate how he navigated his emotions. He grabbed his jacket and keys, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and determination. For once in his life, he wasn't following a schedule. He wasn't answering to investors. He wasn't preparing for a headline. He was simply choosing what felt right. And part of him knew exactly who he wanted to talk to next. While Eli stepped into a new kind of independence, Amira was already knee-deep in the familiar rhythm of her world. The pediatric floor of the hospital buzzed with movement, nurses calling orders, machines beeping. Families whispering prayers, children watching cartoons to distract themselves from fear. Amira moved between rooms with practiced efficiency. Check temperature, administer medication, update charts, comfort anxious parents, encourage frightened kids. Her feet ached inside her sneakers, and her back throbbed from bending over beds all morning. Lack of sleep pressed against her eyelids, but she pushed through it the way she always did. This was her life, steady, demanding, necessary. After finishing a charting session, she leaned against the break room counter and took a sip of cold coffee. She checked the schedule posted above the microwave. Another double shift tomorrow, rent due at the end of the week. Her cousin needed help with school supplies. Her mother's car needed repairs. Real life didn't pause just because she gave comfort to a stranger yesterday. Her phone vibrated. She glanced down. Eli. Hey, I hope work is going okay. I know it's been a rough week for you too. Just checking in. Her chest warmed unexpectedly. She typed back, Amira, long shift. I'm tired, but managing. How are you holding up? The response came quicker than she expected. Eli, still figuring things out, but talking to you yesterday helped more than you know. She paused, letting that settle. She didn't want to get drawn into anything messy or too fast, but she appreciated that he wasn't placing weight on her, just communicating. Amira, I'm glad it helped. A moment later, Eli, can I see you again sometime this week? No pressure, even just for coffee. She smiled softly. Amira, let's see how our schedules look. Coffee, sounds okay. He didn't respond with anything overly eager or heavy-handed. Just, Eli. Okay, whenever you're ready. She tucked her phone away and pushed off the counter, heading back onto the floor. The shift wasn't going to finish itself. But something felt lighter now, not because she was trying to start anything with him, but because the day finally held something beyond exhaustion and survival. Someone had checked on her. Not for help, not for convenience, but because they genuinely cared. No one in her life made scenes or grand gestures. That wasn't how her world worked, but small things mattered. A check-in text, a gentle tone, basic consideration. Those things carried weight in ways most people never understood. 2 evenings later, after Amira checked her schedule twice and Eli rearranged a meeting he didn't actually want to attend, they both managed to find an hour free. They agreed to meet at Lawson's Cafe, the same warm, modest place where Amira had brought him after finding him behind the laundromat. The cafe was tucked between a pharmacy and a clothing shop, known for its homemade muffins and cozy atmosphere. Eli arrived early. He wore a dark sweater, clean jeans, and a pair of quiet sneakers. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed wealth. He chose a booth near the window and kept his hands clasped on the table as he watched people stroll down the sidewalk. He was nervous, not the kind of nervous he felt in boardrooms or conferences. This was different, personal, grounded, real. He checked the time. 2 minutes later, Amira walked in. Her jacket hugged her shoulders, and her curls bounced lightly as she scanned the room. When she spotted him, she offered a small smile and walked over. Hey, she said warmly. Hey, he replied, standing briefly before she slid into the seat across from him. A server dropped off menus, but neither of them reached for one right away. You look tired, he said gently. That's because I am, she replied, with a little chuckle. But I'm glad we could find time. So am I, he said. She glanced at him. You look calmer today. I'm trying, he admitted. The server returned and took their orders. Tea for him, chai latte for her, and a pair of muffins to share. As they waited, Amira asked, How's everything with your father? Eli exhaled. Tense. He wants a statement. I don't. Of course he does, she said. He's thinking about all the business stuff. Yeah. But I'm not ready to pretend everything's fine. Good, she said. You shouldn't have to. He looked at her with gratitude. Talking to you keeps reminding me that I'm allowed to feel things. I didn't realize how much I needed that. You're human, she said. Even if the world treats you like you're not. Their drinks arrived. Amira wrapped her hands around her cup, letting the warmth soothe her fingers. So, she said with a soft smile. How are you sleeping? Better, he replied. Still not great. Understandable. He studied her quietly for a moment. You know, it's easy to forget you're probably carrying your own stress. She laughed lightly. I carry plenty, trust me. How do you do it? Do what? Stay steady through everything. She shrugged gently. I don't have a choice. Life doesn't slow down for people like me. You just adapt, keep going, and try to find small joys. Like chai and muffins? He asked. Yes, she said with a smile. Like chai and muffins. He smiled back, softly. For the next half hour, they talked, not about pain, not about heartbreak, not about status. Just life, real life. Amira told stories about her younger cousin's antics. Eli shared small pieces of his childhood. They drifted through topics without pressure or expectation. At one point, Amira looked at him thoughtfully. You're gentle, she said. He blinked. I don't think anyone's ever used that word for me. Well, they should, she said simply. The words hit deeper than she realized. Eli lowered his gaze with a quiet smile. Thank you. For a moment, the space between them softened. Not romantic, not charged, just warm, like the beginning of understanding. When the hour ended, Amira stood and grabbed her jacket. I have another shift early, she said. But this was good. Really good. Yeah, he replied. It was. He walked her to the door. Just before she stepped out, she turned to him. You're doing better than you think, she said. He held her gaze. Not without help. She smiled. See you soon. And she meant it. As the door closed behind her, Eli remained still for a moment. Not grieving, not lost, just thoughtful. Someone saw him. Not the CEO, not the headline. Just him. And something steady, gentle, and unfamiliar began forming in the quiet space she left behind. Over the next several days, life didn't slow down for either of them. Amira was consumed by double shifts, hospital demands, and the reality of supporting her family. Eli, meanwhile, returned to a world that still demanded strength he no longer had the energy to fake. Meetings continued. Emails arrived without pause. His father pushed harder than ever for public statements and rapid solutions. But something had changed. Eli had changed. He no longer allowed those pressures to drown him. Each morning after brushing his teeth and straightening his clothes, his hand instinctively reached for his phone, not out of obligation but out of a quiet hope. He didn't send long messages. He didn't overwhelm her. He didn't hover. Instead, he practiced a new form of communication, one built on steadiness rather than urgency. Eli. Good morning. I hope you slept well. Amira. Barely. But I'm up and moving. You. Eli. Trying to find balance today. Let me know if you need anything. He never asked for more. Never pressed for answers. Never demanded time. His messages arrived like small check-ins, not interruptions. When Amira was at work, she sometimes found her phone vibrating in her pocket and smiled before she even read the notification. Later one afternoon, during a 15-minute break, she leaned against the vending machine and texted him. Amira, how's your day going? Eli responded quickly. Eli. Long, but manageable. Thinking about the lake walk. It helped more than I said. Amira. It helped me too. Life feels heavy sometimes. Eli. If you ever need space to breathe, I'm here. She stared at that last sentence, longer than she expected. Presence. Not pressure, not demands, not expectations, just presence. Meanwhile, Eli found himself slowly reclaiming emotional independence from his father. Instead of letting himself be dragged into planning public responses about the failed wedding, he kept firm boundaries. One afternoon, his father stormed into his penthouse unannounced, tossing a tablet onto the counter. Do you know how many articles came out this morning? The speculation is out of control. Eli remained seated at the kitchen island, calm but distant. "Dad, I'm not feeding the press cycle. The truth is enough." "The truth," his father repeated sharply, "is that you walked away without addressing anything. That leaves room for interpretation." "I'm okay with that," Eli said. "You shouldn't be," his father shot back. "This isn't about you. It's about the company." Eli inhaled slowly. "No, for once it is about me." His father stared at him, baffled. "What happened to you?" "I stopped pretending," Eli replied. His father opened his mouth, then closed it, stepping back as though he didn't recognize the son in front of him. "This isn't you," he said. "Maybe it always was," Eli answered. His father left eventually, frustrated but unable to push past the wall Eli now held with quiet confidence. After he left, Eli messaged Amira again, not to dump his feelings, but to steady himself. "Eli, rough conversation with my dad. I'm okay, just needed a moment." She answered 10 minutes later, during a brief pause in her shift. "Amira, proud of you for taking care of yourself. That's not easy." He smiled softly at the screen. "Eli, thank you, Amira." She didn't respond right away, but the next message came an hour later. "Amira, keep doing what's best for you. Everything else can wait." The rest of that evening, Eli sat on his balcony overlooking the city, letting her words replay in his head. She didn't know it, but she was slowly becoming the anchor he'd never had. Quiet persistence, gentle communication, respect for her boundaries, consistency without pressure. This was the foundation of something real, something neither of them had experienced in a long time. And for the first time in years, Eli felt steady, not because he was rebuilding his life alone, but because someone finally saw him where he was. Amira never let her guard down easily. Growing up in a neighborhood where caution was a survival skill, she learned early to trust slowly. People came and went. Promises were often broken. Words didn't always match actions. So when someone like Eli, wealthy, polished, and from a completely different environment, showed up in her world, her instinct wasn't to welcome him. It was to watch, evaluate, and proceed carefully. But Eli didn't storm in with charm. He didn't try to impress her. He didn't assume access to her life. He took his time. And that mattered. A few nights later, Amira sat on her couch after a long shift, legs stretched out, nursing a cup of leftover tea. Her phone buzzed. "Eli, just checking. How are you feeling after your shift?" She smirked softly. "Amira, exhausted. I'm thinking of renting a whole new pair of feet." Eli responded with a laughing emoji. "Eli, if I could buy you the best orthopedic shoes in the world, I would." "Amira, don't tempt me. Those things are expensive." "Eli, I'm serious though. I know you work hard." "Amira, everybody in my field does. Comes with the job." "Eli, still, you deserve someone checking on you too." She paused. That line touched something inside her, something she didn't realize had been neglected for a long time. She typed back, "Amira, thank you. That means more than you know." Their conversations grew more natural, more honest. He told her about the pressure of leading a company at a young age, about nights spent staring at spreadsheets instead of sleeping, about being praised publicly but criticized privately by people he trusted. She told him about working extra hours to help her mother with bills, about trying to build a future despite obstacles, about the emotional toll of comforting sick children, and about wanting a life where she didn't have to stretch herself so thin. He listened. She listened. Neither talked over the other. One night, after she shared a particularly emotional shift involving a young patient, Eli messaged, "Eli, you give so much of yourself to everyone around you." "Amira, it's my job." "Eli, no, it's your heart." The message made her pause, not because it was romantic, but because it was accurate. She stared at the screen for nearly a minute before replying, "Amira, I don't know how to be any other way." "Eli, don't ever change that. Just let someone support you too." Her guard didn't fall all at once, but it lowered, inch by inch, because every message was steady, every interaction was respectful, every conversation felt like two grown adults showing up with sincerity. And Amira realized something she hadn't admitted out loud. She genuinely enjoyed talking to him, not because he was hurting, not because he needed her, but because they understood each other more with each passing day. Just as trust between Eli and Amira deepened, reality reminded them that life rarely moves in straight lines. It started with a message from Eli's assistant early one morning. Assistant, there's increased media activity today. They're digging deeper into the wedding fallout. Eli sighed. He had expected this but hoped it would fade sooner. By noon, 3 major outlets had posted follow-up articles speculating why the wedding collapsed. Some blamed stress. Some blamed incompatibility. Some blamed rumors that had no grounds whatsoever. But one headline stood out. Sources claim ex-bride regrets abrupt exit. Eli clenched his jaw. He hadn't spoken to her. He didn't want to. But apparently, someone in her circle decided to talk. His assistant messaged again. Assistant. She hasn't reached out directly, but someone connected to her asked if you'd be open to a conversation. Eli closed his eyes, frustration building. He typed back. Eli. No. Absolutely not. He placed the phone down. He didn't want to be dragged back into her orbit. He didn't want explanations. He didn't need closure from someone who never gave him honesty in the first place. But complications didn't stop there. Later that evening, he stepped outside his building and noticed a photographer across the street. Not aggressive, just lingering, ready to capture any moment he left his home. He turned around immediately and went back inside. He texted Amira. Eli, today's been rough. The media won't let this go. She responded. Amira, do you want to talk about it? Eli, I don't want to drag you into this. Amira, you're not dragging me. If I didn't want to listen, I wouldn't ask. His shoulders relaxed. He explained the situation briefly, the articles, the resurfacing whispers, the assistant's message. Amira replied, Amira, people love drama. They love stories. They don't care about the people inside them. Don't let them pull you back into pain you didn't ask for. The words hit him with the weight of truth. Before he could respond, she added, Amira, but remember, you're not alone. For a moment, Eli sat still in his living room, letting those words settle. They carried the same quiet strength she held in that walkway behind the laundromat. Someone cared, truly cared, but with complications rising, he knew the days ahead wouldn't be simple. The press wasn't done with him, and the shadows of his past relationship weren't finished making noise. Still, amidst the chaos, one thing remained steady. Amira, her presence, her honesty, her growing place in his life. And in the middle of everything falling apart publicly, something private and genuine was beginning to form. The following week moved with a rhythm that surprised both of them. Quiet conversations, thoughtful check-ins, an unspoken comfort building between moments. It wasn't a romance. It wasn't a friendship in the traditional sense. It was something in between, something steady, something meaningful. But with closeness comes misunderstanding, and misunderstandings always have a way of revealing what someone means to you. It happened on a Thursday evening. Amira had just finished her second shift at the hospital, exhaustion weighing down every part of her body. Her braids were pulled up, her mask creased a line across her cheeks, and her feet throbbed inside her sneakers. She clocked out, grabbed her bag, and walked toward the exit, only to find Eli waiting outside the glass doors. He stood near the bench, hands in his pockets, head slightly bowed as if rehearsing what he was going to say. The cool night breeze ruffled the edge of his sweatshirt. She blinked, surprised. Eli, what are you doing here? He stepped forward. I wanted to see you. I know you've had a long day. She sighed softly, caught between exhaustion and appreciation. You didn't have to come all the way here. I wanted to, he said gently. They walked together down the ramp toward the street. The night air was brisk, and traffic hummed nearby. Amira pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. How was your shift? He asked. Rough, she admitted. But I'm glad it's over. He nodded, matching her pace. They reached the bus shelter. A few people waited nearby, scrolling through their phones or staring off into the distance. Eli hesitated. Amira, can I ask you something? She looked at him carefully. What's wrong? He exhaled. My assistant mentioned something today, about the media digging deeper, and apparently there's a rumor going around that my ex-fiancée left because she thought I was still in touch with someone else from my past. Amira frowned. Is that true? No, he said quickly. But one of the reporters apparently dug up photos of me with someone I dated years ago. Before the engagement, they're spinning it like we were still involved. Amira blinked slowly. Were you? No, he repeated more urgently. Absolutely not. She studied him for a moment. considering his tone, his posture, his sincerity. But her exhaustion made it harder for her to process everything. She wasn't insecure, but she had been hurt before. She had seen how people sometimes soften stories to protect themselves. "And you didn't think to tell me this earlier?" she asked quietly. "I didn't know the reporters were going to exaggerate it," he said. "I didn't think it mattered." "It matters to me," she replied, voice still calm but firmer than usual. "Not because I'm trying to claim you, but because I need honesty from anyone in my space." He swallowed. "I wasn't hiding anything." "You didn't mention it either," she said. "There's a difference." He stepped closer. "Amira, I didn't think it was important. It's not a part of my life anymore." She exhaled deeply. "I believe you, but right now I'm tired, and this is a lot." He reached for her hand instinctively, but she pulled her hand back, not harshly, just carefully. "I need a minute," she said softly. "Amira, please listen." "I'm not angry," she interrupted gently. "I just need space to think. That's all." That sentence cut deeper than she intended. He nodded slowly, but the strain in his chest tightened. "Okay, I understand." But he didn't fully understand. Not emotionally, not until she stepped away. The bus arrived, brakes hissing as the doors opened. Amira climbed inside without looking back, the weight of her exhaustion and confusion pressed into each step. She found an empty seat and leaned her head against the window, trying to breathe through the noise in her mind. She wasn't accusing him of anything. She wasn't doubting him. She just needed space to feel grounded again. But for Eli, standing alone on the sidewalk as the bus pulled away, the moment felt heavier. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't full of tears or shouting. It was the quiet kind of conflict that sneaks up on you, the kind that exposes how much you care about someone. He stood there until the bus disappeared into the distance. His phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. "We need you to approve a statement for tomorrow morning." He ignored it. He walked down the block slowly, hands deep in his pockets, replaying the conversation again and again. He wasn't angry at her. He understood her reaction. But understanding didn't stop the ache settling in his chest. He didn't want to lose the fragile connection forming between them. He didn't want her to pull away because of something he didn't say. He didn't want this moment to be the end of their progress. When he reached his penthouse, he didn't turn on the lights. He just stood in the dark, resting his forehead against the cool window glass. "Give her space," he whispered to himself. It was the right thing to do, the respectful thing, the mature thing, but it didn't make the silence any easier. He checked his phone once, just once, to see if she had messaged him. She hadn't. He placed the phone face down on the counter. He tried to focus on work. He tried to read emails. He tried to distract himself, but his mind kept returning to the same thought. She pulled away, and it mattered to him more than he expected. That night he lay awake, feeling the loss long before he could name it. Not the loss of a relationship, the loss of connection, the loss of her presence, her steadiness, her warmth. It wasn't love yet, but it was something real, something he wasn't ready for, and didn't want to lose. The next morning came with a thin layer of fog over the city, softening the skyline and giving the streets a muted quiet. Amira sat at her kitchen table, holding a mug of warm tea, letting the steam rise gently against her face. She had slept very little. Part of it was physical exhaustion, but most of it was mental. She hadn't meant to pull away from Eli so abruptly. She wasn't upset with him. She wasn't doubting him. She simply needed space to breathe. Years of navigating life carefully had conditioned her to step back when emotions stirred too quickly. Not out of fear, out of wisdom, out of caution, out of self-preservation, but even she had to admit, she missed him. She missed his steady messages. She missed the gentle check-ins. She missed the warmth in his tone when he said her name. She lifted her phone. No messages from him, and that made sense. She asked for space. He respected it. Still, she felt the absence. On the other side of Chicago, Eli woke in his penthouse after a restless night. He sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, rubbing his palms together. He had drafted several messages to her throughout the night, none of which he sent. She said she needed space. He wanted to honor that, even if it twisted his chest. By noon, he reached a point where he couldn't sit still. He paced the living room, checked his phone again, then finally grabbed his jacket and left the building. He didn't have a destination in mind, just the instinct to move. He found himself walking along the same lakeside path where they'd talked days earlier. The water lapped softly against the rocks, and the breeze brushed gently across his face. He pulled out his phone, typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, "Eli, when you're ready to talk, I'm here. No pressure." He stared at it for a moment before hitting send. Amira received it while she was sorting patient files at the hospital. Her breath caught slightly, just enough to notice. His message wasn't demanding, wasn't emotional, wasn't defensive. It was patient, respectful, steady. After a moment she typed back, "Amira, can we talk after my shift? I get off at 4. He replied almost instantly, "Eli, yes. Tell me where. I'll meet you there." She hesitated only briefly before sending, "Amira, the park near the main entrance. The bench we sat on before. Eli." "I'll be there." At 4:10 p.m., Amira walked through the hospital doors, exhaustion clinging to her shoulders. The afternoon sun stretched across the pavement, and the air smelled faintly of street food in early spring. Eli was already seated on the bench, hands clasped, back straight, expression hopeful but nervous. He stood as she approached. Hi," she replied softly. They sat down with a bit of space between them, not cold space, just the kind that acknowledges something needs to be said. Eli spoke first. "I'm sorry if I overwhelmed you yesterday. That wasn't my intention." "You didn't overwhelm me," she said. "I just needed a moment to process." He nodded. "I understand. I really do." She took a breath. "I wasn't upset about your past. Everyone has one. It was just a surprise. And when I'm tired, surprises hit differently." He chuckled quietly. "I know that feeling." She turned toward him slightly. "Eli, I don't want to feel like I'm stepping into something messy without knowing what I'm facing. I don't want to be blindsided. I've had enough of that in my life." His expression softened. "You won't be blindsided by me. I promise you that." "I'm not asking for promises," she said gently. "I just want honesty, real honesty. The kind that doesn't wait for a rumor to surface before I hear the truth." He nodded again, more firmly this time. "You deserve that. And I should have told you earlier. Not because I thought it would be an issue, but because it mattered to you." "It does," she said simply. "I'm not talking to anyone from my past, not romantically, not secretly," he said. "And the rumor? It's just noise. Noise from people who don't know anything about me." "I believe you," she replied. Relief washed through him, loosening the tension in his shoulders. "But," she added, "I need to learn how to trust you slowly. I can't rush this." "I don't want to rush it either," he said. "I want to take our time." The honesty in his voice made her chest warm. They sat quietly for a moment, letting the calm settle between them. "Yesterday scared me," Eli admitted. "Not because you stepped back, but because it made me realize how much I value this. Whatever this is." Her eyes lowered briefly. "It scared me too. Not for the same reason, but because I realized how quickly I'd gotten used to you checking in. It felt strange when that stopped." He looked at her, really looked. "You matter to me," he said quietly. "Not because of what you did for me that night. Not because you listened, but because you're you." She swallowed, the sincerity sinking deep. He added, "I want to be someone you can talk to, someone you trust, someone who doesn't make your life harder." "You're not making my life harder," she said. "You're making it fuller." Their eyes met. No sparks, no over-the-top emotion. Just two adults acknowledging a shift. A real one. "Can we start fresh?" he asked gently. "Fresh," she agreed. "But honest. Always honest. Always," he said. A breeze drifted across the bench. Neither of them moved away this time. The space between them wasn't distance anymore. It was safety, growth, understanding. For the first time since the conflict, both felt steady again. Not because feelings vanished, but because they finally named them. Healing didn't come through silence. It came through honesty. And this was their first real step towards something deeper. The sun dipped lower in the sky as they remained on the park bench, the soft gold fading into a deeper shade of orange. Evening joggers passed by with steady footsteps. Kids wrapped up their games, and parents called their families home. But for Eli and Amira, time moved differently, slower, gentler, more deliberate. She shifted slightly closer, not enough to break boundaries, but enough to show she wasn't pulling away anymore. Eli noticed the space changing between them, but he didn't rush anything. Every movement had its own quiet meaning. "I'm glad we talked," Amira said softly. "Me too," he replied. "It feels like we're on the same page now." "We are," she said, "and that matters." Her voice had a calm steadiness to it that eased something deep inside him. He'd spent years surrounded by people who demanded speed, quick decisions, quick actions, quick responses. Amira was the opposite. She moved with intention, and that gave him permission to slow down too. She looked out at the water. "You know, I think we were both scared yesterday." He nodded. "You were scared of the mess. I was scared of losing whatever this is becoming." She glanced at him. "Whatever this is becoming," she repeated quietly. "Do you know what you want it to be?" Eli didn't speak right away. He stared ahead at the shimmering reflection of the setting sun on the water, thinking carefully before answering. "I want something real," he said finally. "Not rushed, not forced, not something people expect because of my status or your kindness. I want something that grows because we choose it." Amira felt those words settle in her chest, heavy but warm. "That sounds like a grown-up answer," she teased lightly. He laughed softly. "I'm trying, and I appreciate that," she said. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers lightly interlaced. Eli noticed her thumb tracing small circles against her palm, a habit she seemed to have when thinking deeply. "What about you?" he asked. "What do you want this to be?" She didn't shy away from the question. She met it head on, the way she handled every honest moment with him. "I want something steady," she said. "Something respectful. Something that doesn't fall apart the moment life gets complicated." His heart tightened, not with fear, but with recognition. "I can give that kind of effort," he said. "I believe you," she replied. And she meant it, not because he had money or influence, not because he had shared his pain, but because he had consistently shown up with sincerity. For a while they simply sat, letting the evening settle around them. A soft breeze brushed across Amira's braids, lifting a strand that had slipped from her hair tie. Without thinking, Eli reached out gently and tucked it behind her ear. She froze, not in discomfort, but in surprise at the softness of the gesture. He caught himself. "Sorry, I shouldn't have." "It's okay," she said, voice almost a whisper. Their eyes met again. This time, neither looked away. There was no rush, no dramatic pull, no overwhelming spark. Just a quiet recognition that something deeper was forming between them. Something built on moments like this, small but meaningful. Amira exhaled slowly. "You know, I didn't expect you to fit into my life the way you have." "I didn't expect to want to," he admitted. She smiled softly. "I'm still getting used to you." "I'm getting used to you too," he replied. In the best way. Her cheeks warmed, subtly, beautifully. She wasn't someone who fell easily, or let her heart lead before her mind, but she also wasn't someone who denied truth when it stood clearly in front of her. "Can I be honest about something else?" she asked. "Always," he said. "You make me feel—" She searched for the right words. "Safe." His breath hitched. "Safe," he repeated, stunned that he could give such a feeling. "Yes," she said simply, "not because of what you have, because of how you treat me." He leaned back slightly, absorbing the weight of her words. They weren't romantic compliments. They weren't empty praise. They were truth, direct and unfiltered. "I'm glad," he whispered. Silence returned, but not the uncertain kind from before. This one held something new. Acknowledgement. Understanding. The first gentle rise of genuine attachment. A question hovered between them. Not spoken aloud, not fully formed, but felt by both. "Are we moving towards something deeper?" Eli didn't push. He didn't try to define anything too soon. Instead, he said, "I'd like to keep spending time with you." Slowly, intentionally, Amira nodded. "I'd like that too." He smiled, softly, gratefully. "Should the first walk you home?" he asked. She hesitated only long enough to think it through, then nodded. "Yes, I'd like that." They stood from the bench, walking side by side toward the street. Their arms brushed lightly once, and neither pulled away. The touch wasn't planned. It wasn't bold, but it carried a quiet promise. "We're moving toward each other." As they walked through the neighborhood, Amira pointed out small details where she used to play. As a kid, which corner store had the best sandwiches, which ice cream truck played off-key music. Eli listened intently, smiling at the way she infused life into simple memories. When they reached her building, she turned toward him. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" he asked. "For coming back today," she replied. "For talking, for listening, for not giving up after one hard moment." "I don't want to give up," he said. "Not on this, not on us trying." Her heart thudded once, hard and clear, but it didn't scare her. "It's late," she said gently. "You should get home." He nodded. "Text me when you feel like it. No rush." "Same for you," she said. Before she could step inside, he reached out slowly, not touching her, just resting his hand near hers. "Amira," he said softly, "I'm glad you're in my life." Her breath caught. Then she replied quietly, "I'm glad you're in mine too." She went inside, leaving him standing beneath the warm glow of the porch light. He didn't move for a long moment. He simply let himself feel everything he'd been holding back. This wasn't love. Not yet. But it was the beginning of something steady, honest, and intentional. And for both of them, that was more than enough. The first sign that something had shifted came during a Tuesday morning shift change. Amira stood at the nurse's station on the pediatric floor, scanning the overnight notes and making a list of her patients for the day. Her pen tapped softly against the clipboard as she mentally sorted through priorities. Medication times, lab results, parents who needed extra reassurance. Caldwell, one of her coworkers, Layla, called gently. "You seen your phone yet?" Amira glanced up. "No." "Why?" Layla bit her lip. "You might want to check, before someone else brings it up." That sentence made Amira's stomach tighten. She stepped aside, pulled her phone from her scrub pocket, and unlocked it. Her notifications were flooded. Group chat messages, social media tags, texts from friends. She opened one from her cousin first. "Cousin, girl, why are you on my Explore page with that CEO?" Her heart skipped. She opened another message, this time from a friend she grew up with. "Friend, is this really you? Please tell me they're not about to stress you at work over this." Attached was a screenshot of an online article. Amira's throat went dry as she clicked. A gossip site headline sat at the top of the page. "Mystery woman comforting abandoned groom identified as Chicago hospital worker." Below it was a zoomed-in photo taken from an angle she never saw, her and Eli walking out of Lawson's cafe. She recognized her jacket, his sweatshirt, the way they leaned slightly toward each other while talking. The caption under the photo read, "Sources say this woman has been spending time with tech figure Eli Turner following his public wedding fallout." The article wasn't long, but it was enough to cause damage. It mentioned the hospital she worked at. It mentioned her position, vaguely, but close enough. It referred to her as a local healthcare worker from the South Side and used phrases that made her sound like part of a rumor instead of a person. Her chest tightened. Layla stepped closer. "You okay?" Amira swallowed. "They put my job in this. You know how these blogs are," Layla said. "They don't care who they drag in. They just want clicks." "I didn't sign up for this," Amira whispered. Before Layla could respond, their charge nurse, Mrs. Hayes, approached. "Caldwell," she said, tone firm but not unkind. "When you get a minute, I need to see you in my office." Amira's pulse quickened. "Is something wrong?" Mrs. Hayes gave her a look that said, "We'll talk inside," then walked away. Layla squeezed Amira's arm. "If they say anything wild, you call your union rep." Amira nodded numbly. She finished logging into her charting station, then walked down the hall toward the small office that overlooked a unit. Her sneakers squeaked softly against the floor as she stepped inside. Mrs. Hayes sat behind the desk with a folder open and a tablet beside her. Another person sat in the corner, Mr. Daniels, someone from administration Amira had only seen a handful of times. "Close the door, please," Mrs. Hayes said. Amira obeyed, then stood, hands tucked into the sides of her scrub top. "Have a seat," Mr. Daniels said. She sat. Mrs. Hayes leaned forward. "Caldwell, you know we appreciate your work here. You're reliable. Families trust you. That's why we wanted to talk to you quickly before things get out of hand." "Out of hand?" Amira repeated cautiously. Mr. Daniels turned the tablet toward her, showing the same article she had just seen on her phone. "We've been notified that a few online outlets are circulating this." "I didn't talk to anyone," Amira said immediately. "I didn't share anything. I didn't want this." "I believe you," Mrs. Hayes said. But whether you wanted it or not, your name is starting to float around online. Parents see these things. Staff sees these things. We've already had 2 phone calls asking if you're still assigned to this floor. Amira blinked. Why wouldn't I be? Because some people, Mr. Daniels said carefully, assume that if your name is in a story involving a public figure, you might be a distraction, or that our hospital is somehow in the middle of something messy. Her jaw clenched, but she kept her tone respectful. My work hasn't changed. I've been here every shift, doing my job like I always do. We know, Mrs. Hayes said quickly. We're not doubting your work ethic. We're just trying to anticipate potential issues before they grow. Amira took a breath. What does that mean for me? Mr. Daniels glanced at Mrs. Hayes, then said, Right now, it means we're asking you to be extremely careful. No interviews, no comments, no posts about this. If anyone reaches out to you, press, bloggers, whoever, you direct them to our communications department and say nothing. I wasn't planning to talk to anyone anyway, she said. Good, he replied, because if this escalates, we may need to make sure your name stays as protected as possible. We handle a lot of sensitive families here. They want to know their children are in a steady environment. So do I, Amira said. Mrs. Hayes folded her hands. Caldwell, I'm going to be honest with you. There are always people looking for ways to tear down women like you. I don't want that happening under this roof. Keep your boundaries tight. Tears pricked the back of Amira's eyes, not because she was in trouble, but because she felt exposed. I didn't do anything wrong, she said quietly. No, Mrs. Hayes agreed. You cared about someone. The world turned that into entertainment. That's on them, not you. The words soothed her slightly, but not completely. Can I keep working? Amira asked. I need to be here. Professionally and financially, you're not being suspended, Mr. Daniels said. We're not at that point, and hopefully we never will be. But stay aware. Don't interact with the press, not at all. Mrs. Hayes added, If anyone shows up here asking for you, call security and then let me know immediately. We will handle it. Amira nodded, standing. Thank you for telling me directly. Mrs. Hayes gave her a kind look. We're on your side. Just be smart. Amira left the office feeling both relieved and unsettled. She walked back toward the nurse's station, the hallway suddenly feeling slightly different. A few coworkers glanced her way longer than usual, their curiosity plain, even if they tried to hide it. She couldn't blame them. People talked. People whispered. People speculated. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was her mother. Mom. Mimi, call me when you're on your break. Folks are sending me links. I want to hear from you, not them. Amira closed her eyes briefly. Of course they are, she muttered under her breath. The rest of the morning felt heavier. In one room, a parent stared at her a beat too long before finally saying, You're the one from that article, right? With that tech guy. Amira kept her expression neutral. I'm here to focus on your child's care. If you have any concerns about treatment, I'm happy to address them. The parent grumbled something under their breath but didn't push further. At lunch, she stepped outside to the small sidewalk area near the main entrance, hoping for a quick moment of fresh air. The sky was bright, traffic steady, and the city's energy pushed along as usual. She took out her sandwich, barely tasting the first bite. Amira Caldwell. A woman's voice called. The tone was too sharp, too focused to be casual. Amira turned. 2 people approached her, a woman with a microphone and a man with a large camera. Both wore badges pinned to their jackets with a local network logo. Her stomach dropped. We're with Channel 8, the woman said quickly. Can we ask you a few questions about your relationship with Eli Turner? No, Amira replied immediately. You can't. The woman stepped closer, ignoring the boundary. Are you 2 dating? Were you involved before he got left at the altar? People are saying. Amira stepped back. I'm at work. This is a hospital, not a red carpet. You need to leave. The cameraman kept recording. Did you comfort him that night because you were already seeing each other? The reporter pressed. Are you the reason his engagement ended? The accusation in that last question made Amira's pulse race. I'm not answering anything, she said firmly. You're disrespecting families and staff by doing this here. A security guard hurried over from the entrance. Ma'am, he said to the reporter, you can't film on hospital grounds without clearance. You need to go. We'll leave when we get a comment, she insisted. You need to go now, the guard repeated, stepping between them. The cameraman lowered the device with reluctance. The reporter huffed, frustrated. "This story isn't going away," she said toward Amira. "People are going to talk with or without you." Amira didn't flinch. "That's their business, not mine." As security escorted the pair away, Amira stood frozen for a few seconds, trying to steady her breathing. Her sandwich sat untouched in her hand. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. "Eli, have you seen the latest stuff online? I'm so sorry. I'm trying to control it from my end." She stared at the message, her emotions swirling, frustration, fatigue, concern. She typed slowly, "Amira, they came to my job today, with a camera, asking if I broke up your wedding." There was no delay in his reply. "Eli, they what?" Her fingers shook as she responded. "Amira, at the hospital, in front of families. Security had to escort them out." She watched the screen. A full minute passed, then another. Finally, "Eli, I'm handling this, right now." She frowned, confused. "Amira, what does that mean?" His answer was firm. "Eli, it means they crossed a line, and I'm not letting them trash your name to feed a story." She stared at those words, her throat tightening for reasons that had nothing to do with fear this time. She had stepped into his life by accident. Now his world was pushing into hers without permission. The difference was clear. The media treated her as a target. But Eli sounded like a man who had finally decided who he was going to protect. Eli stared at his phone long after Amira's last message came through. The words burned in his mind like a warning flare. "They came to my job, not near it, not around it, inside the hospital grounds, with cameras, in front of families, in front of her co-workers, in front of sick children and parents worried about things far more serious than gossip." He felt something he hadn't expected, anger, not explosive, not reckless, just sharp, clear, controlled, the kind of anger that comes from seeing someone gentle being mistreated. He grabbed his jacket and left his penthouse without a second thought. His driver started to approach, but Eli held up a hand. "Not today. I need to move on my own." He walked with purpose toward the corporate office 3 blocks away. As he entered the glass lobby, several staff members looked up. Most were careful, unsure whether to acknowledge him after the wedding incident, but Eli didn't pause for greetings. He took the elevator to the 12th floor, stepping into the conference area where his communications team worked. A group of them turned as soon as he entered. "Mr. Turner," one of them said cautiously, "we were just drafting another suggested statement about—" "Stop," Eli said firmly. "We're not doing any more of those." The room stiffened. Another staff member cleared her throat. "Sir, the outlets are trying to escalate the angle about the woman." "Her name is Amira," he said sharply. "Use it with respect or don't say it." Silence fell. Eli continued. 2 reporters approached her at her job today, with a camera. They harassed her in front of patients. One of the staffers spoke cautiously. "Sir, we didn't authorize that." "I know," he said, "but we're going to address it." The head of communications stepped forward. "What would you like us to do?" "I'll handle the statement myself," he said. "My words, my voice." They exchanged glances. This was not how Eli usually operated. In the past, he hid behind scripted, polished statements. But this situation wasn't a product launch or a shareholder update. It was personal. He walked to the nearest open conference room, closed the door and leaned against the table as he pulled up his social media account. His father called right then. Eli closed his eyes briefly, then answered, "Where are you?" His father demanded. "The news cycle is spiraling." "Don't start," Eli said. "Not today." His father's voice sharpened. "We need a joint statement, something neutral, something measured." "I'm not doing neutral." "What does that mean?" His father snapped. "It means," Eli said, steady and calm, "I'm protecting someone who doesn't deserve to be dragged through my fallout." "You don't even know this woman," his father said. "You're reacting emotionally." Eli's jaw flexed. "I know she's decent. I know she didn't ask for this. I know she's being harassed because of me." "That's enough. You don't owe her anything," his father insisted. "Your priority is your image." "No," Eli replied, voice firm. "My priority is not turning into someone who lets innocent people get crushed because of my image." His father paused. "You're losing control of the narrative." Eli shook his head slowly. "No, For once, I'm taking control of it. Eli, I'm hanging up now. He ended the call before his father could respond. For the first time since the wedding fell apart, Eli felt clarity that wasn't born from heartbreak. It was born from purpose. He returned to his social media page, opened a new post, and typed, "There have been rumors about someone who supported me during a very difficult moment. Her name is Amira. She is not responsible for what happened at my wedding. She didn't break anything, cause anything, or influence anything. She doesn't deserve harassment, especially at her workplace. I ask the media and the public to give her the dignity and privacy she deserves." He paused, then added, "If you need someone to blame, blame me. Leave her out of this." He read it twice. Every word felt true. He hit post. Within seconds, notifications exploded. Comments flooding in. Shares multiplying. Screenshots appearing on news feeds. He knew the statement would make headlines, but this time, the angle would be different. It wasn't gossip. It wasn't speculation. It was him defending Amira. His assistant peeked into the conference room. "Sir, all major outlets just picked up your post." Eli nodded. "Good. Let them." His assistant hesitated. "There will be backlash." "I'm aware. And questions. Let them ask." "I already answered." The assistant swallowed. "And your father?" "He'll adapt," Eli said. "He always does." The team watched him leave the conference room with a steadiness he hadn't carried in months. Outside the building, the afternoon breeze cooled his face. He sat on a bench near the entrance, pulled out his phone, and sent a message to Amira. "Eli, I spoke up. You didn't deserve what happened today. Check your notifications when you can, and if you need me to meet you after your shift, I will." She didn't respond right away. He didn't panic. He didn't spiral. He didn't assume anything was wrong. He just waited. 5 minutes later, his phone lit up. "Amira, you didn't have to do that." "Eli, I know. I wanted to." He imagined her on her break again, sitting outside the hospital, scrolling through the post, seeing her name defended instead of attacked. She sent another message. "Amira, thank you for standing up for me, for not letting them twist things." He typed slowly, "Eli, you're important to me, even if we're still figuring things out. I won't let them hurt you." For a moment, there was no reply. Then, "Amira, I don't know what to say." "Eli, you don't have to say anything. Just know I'm here." He locked his phone and leaned back against the bench, breathing deeply. Despite everything, despite the fallout, the headlines, his father's frustration, he felt lighter. He had drawn a line. Publicly, clearly, boldly, and for the first time in a long time, he felt proud of himself. He stood up and began walking toward the train station, ready to let the rest of the day take its course. Whatever came next, he knew one thing. He wasn't letting the world push Amira into the shadows. He wasn't letting noise define their connection. He wasn't letting silence turn into damage. Today he had chosen the kind of man he wanted to be. And it didn't involve hiding behind polished statements or letting others control his path. It involved standing up, telling the truth, and protecting someone who mattered. Amira didn't get the chance to check her phone again until her next break. Between medication rounds, calming anxious parents, and comforting a young patient who was terrified of an upcoming procedure, she barely had a second to breathe. But every so often someone looked at her differently, curious, surprised, or whispering something to a coworker. She wasn't used to being observed. She preferred blending into the steady rhythm of hospital life, doing her job, going home, and minding her business. Today shifted that rhythm. When she stepped out through the side exit for her late afternoon break, she sat on the same bench where she had been confronted earlier. The air was cooler now, brushing against her cheeks gently. She finally unlocked her phone. Notifications flooded the screen. Messages, missed calls, tags, and screenshots from friends. But the one that mattered most was the one she skipped earlier. Eli's post. She opened it fully, reading each sentence slowly. "Her name is Amira. She is not responsible for what happened at my wedding. She didn't break anything, cause anything, or influence anything. She doesn't deserve harassment. If you need someone to blame, blame me. Leave her out of this." Her breath caught, not because it was dramatic, not because it was romantic, but because it was principled, firm, courageous. People in her life had defended her before, but quietly, in small ways. Eli had defended her in front of anyone willing to twist her name for attention. She scrolled through the reactions, thousands of likes, hundreds of supportive comments, dozens of people calling out the reporters for crossing boundaries. But what struck her most were the messages she received from unexpected sources. Layla, girl. He did not play around. Wow. Her cousin, Mimi. This man stood 10 toes down for you. I'm impressed. Her mom, call me when you can. That statement he made. I see why you like talking to him. Amira pressed her hand lightly against her chest, a habit she'd had since childhood when trying to calm her thoughts. She hadn't realized until this moment just how exposed she had felt since the article dropped, how vulnerable she had been knowing strangers were dragging her name into a story that had nothing to do with her choices. But Eli didn't let it continue. He didn't hesitate. He didn't hide behind corporate polish. He didn't let his father silence him. He protected her. And not in a heroic, over-the-top way. Not with grand gestures or public affection, but with truth, real truth, the kind rooted in integrity, not impulse. Her break ended quickly, but her mind stayed fixed on that post for the rest of her shift. When she finally clocked out and stepped outside into the cool evening air, she found Eli waiting a few feet down the sidewalk. He leaned against a street lamp, hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes revealed a hint of worry, wondering how she felt, whether she was upset, whether he had crossed a line. He straightened when he saw her. Hi, he said quietly. Hi, she replied, walking toward him. He searched her face, trying to read her emotions. Are you okay? She nodded slowly. I am now. Relief washed over him. I didn't want to make things worse, he said. I couldn't let them keep talking about you like that. You didn't make things worse, she said. You made me feel defended. He swallowed, his voice low. You deserve that. A car passed by, headlights sweeping across the pavement. They stepped aside to let a group of nurses exit the building behind them. Amira folded her arms gently. I read the post. All of it. He nodded faintly. I meant every word. She studied him for a moment. You didn't have to do that. His eyes softened. I know. But I wanted to. That's what I don't understand, she admitted. Why would you take that kind of heat for me? Because you didn't ask for any of this, he said. You helped me when I was at my lowest. You didn't treat me like a headline. I wasn't going to let people tear you apart for simply being kind. Her throat tightened. She had heard words like that before, but rarely with this much sincerity. Eli, she said softly, you really didn't have to pick a side. I wasn't picking sides, he said. I was telling the truth. The simplicity of that statement touched something deep within her. She stepped closer. You know, she murmured, people usually run when someone's life gets messy, or they stay quiet, or they pretend they don't see the situation at all. I'm not most people, he said. No, she whispered. You're not. A breeze brushed past them. The street lights flickered on. Conversations from passing pedestrians faded as they continued down the sidewalk. He walked her toward the bus stop, his steps matching hers. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I didn't post that to win anything from you. I know. I didn't do it to look good. I know. I did it because it was right. She nodded. That's exactly why it meant so much. They reached the bus shelter. She turned to him fully, her expression softer than he had ever seen it. You showed me something today, she said. What's that? He asked. That you don't run from responsibility, she said, and you don't leave people to face storms alone. He swallowed. You shouldn't have had to deal with any of that by yourself. The bus approached, headlights glowing brighter as it neared. Amira took a small step forward, closing the space between them. Not romantic, not suggestive, just meaningful. You have a good heart, Eli, she said quietly. Better than I expected. Better than you even realize. His breath caught. And that, she added, is why I'm not stepping back. He blinked, stunned. You're not? He asked cautiously. No, she said. Not after today. The bus pulled up with a soft hiss, and the doors opened. Amira placed her hand gently on his forearm. Light, grounding, intentional. I'll text you when I get home, she said. He nodded, voice low. I'll be waiting. She stepped onto the bus, gave him one more look, a look filled with warmth and something quietly blooming, before finding a seat. As the bus pulled away, Eli stood on the sidewalk, watching the taillights until they disappeared. And for the first time since everything began, there was no doubt, no question, no hesitation. She was falling for him. Slowly, steadily, because of who he truly was when the world wasn't watching. And he felt himself falling too. 3 days after Eli defended Amira online, life settled into a new, unexpected rhythm. Not peaceful, not easy, just clearer. The noise still existed around them, but the weight of it had shifted. Amira wasn't carrying it alone. Eli wasn't hiding from it. They were navigating the aftermath together, one steady conversation at a time. But the world had one more test waiting for them, and it came in the form of someone neither of them expected to see again so soon. It was late afternoon when Eli returned to his company headquarters for a strategy meeting. He hadn't wanted to go. He was tired of the tension and the constant scrutiny, but avoiding the office forever wasn't realistic. As he stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor, his assistant rushed toward him, eyes wide with warning. "Sir, just a heads up, she's here." Eli paused. "Who?" His assistant swallowed. "Your ex. She's in the conference lounge." Eli felt a slow, cold drop settle in his chest. "Who let her in?" "She came with her mother," the assistant explained. "Security assumed she had permission." Eli drew a steady breath, jaw tightening. "Okay, it's fine. I'll handle it." He walked down the hallway toward the glass-walled lounge, each step heavy but deliberate. He wasn't angry. He wasn't anxious. He was done. As he approached, she stood from the couch. "Eli," she said softly. Her name wasn't one that would ever appear in any forbidden list, but it carried a familiar sting, one tied to disappointment, not hatred. She looked different now. Her hair was styled neatly, makeup perfectly applied, but her expression held none of the composure she displayed at the wedding. Instead, there was a tremor around her mouth. Her eyes looked weary. Her mother stood behind her, arms crossed, watching Eli carefully. He stopped a respectful distance away. "What are you doing here?" She inhaled shakily. "I needed to talk to you." "You could have called," he replied. "I didn't think you'd answer." He didn't deny it. She stepped closer. "Can we talk privately?" "No," he said calmly. "Anything you need to say can be said here." Her mother shifted, about to speak, but Eli held up a hand, not rudely, firmly. "This is between me and her." His ex swallowed hard, then looked down at her hands before meeting his eyes again. "I owe you the truth," she said quietly. "The real truth." Eli didn't move. "Then say it." She took a breath. "I didn't love you the way I said I did." Silence stretched across the room. "I cared about you," she continued, her voice trembling. "I admired you, I respected you, but I never felt what I thought I should feel. I thought it would grow. I told myself the feelings would come if I just pushed through the discomfort." "Discomfort?" he repeated. "Yes," she whispered. "Because everything came so fast. The engagement, the planning, our families pushing, the pressure to look perfect. You were so confident about us. I didn't want to disappoint you." He stared at her, tired but patient. "So you lied." She flinched. "I lied to myself first. I kept thinking, if I just get through the wedding day, maybe everything will finally feel right." He let out a slow breath. "It didn't." "No," she said. "It didn't. And the moment I saw you standing at the altar, ready to commit your whole life to me, I felt like I was suffocating." Her mother touched her shoulder gently, but she stepped away from the comforting gesture. "I walked down the aisle trying to convince myself to keep going," she said. "But every step made it worse. By the halfway point, I knew I couldn't lie to you anymore." "So you humiliated me publicly," Eli said, not with bitterness, just clarity. "I didn't mean to humiliate you," she whispered. "I just couldn't keep pretending." He nodded slowly, his throat tightening, not from heartbreak this time, but from closure he didn't realize he needed. "I should have told you earlier," she admitted. "I should have said something weeks before. I know that. I was a coward." Eli sighed, rubbing his thumb along the edge of his phone. "So why come now?" Her mother stepped forward. "Because the media is twisting this into a story about that woman. The woman has a name," Eli said calmly. "Amira." His ex's cheeks flushed. "Yes, Amira. They're making it look like she broke us apart." "I already corrected that publicly," Eli said. "We saw," her mother said sharply. "And that's why we're here. You defending another woman is making our daughter look—" "Enough," Eli interrupted, voice firm but steady. "This isn't about optics. This is about the truth." His ex held up a hand, silencing her mother. "Please, let me speak." After a moment, her mother stepped back. His ex turned toward him again. "The rumors are making everything worse. People think you left me for her. They think she was involved before the wedding." "She wasn't," he said simply. "I know," she whispered. "But people don't care about the truth. They care about drama." "You're the one who walked away," Eli replied. "Publicly, unexpectedly. That wasn't Amira's doing. That was yours." His ex nodded slowly. "I know. And that's why I want to fix this." He frowned. "Fix? How?" "I want us to do a statement together," she said. "A public interview. Something that clears the air. They're talking about me like I'm heartless. They're attacking my family, my character, everything. Which is exactly what they're doing to Amira," he replied. "But I'm your ex-fiancé," she said. "My name is tied to yours in a way hers isn't." Eli stepped back slightly. "What are you asking for?" She hesitated. "Then, a reconciliation, publicly." He blinked, stunned. "Not romantically," she rushed to clarify. "But publicly, just for appearances. A united front, something that makes us look like we ended on good terms." He stared at her, incredulous. "You want us to pretend?" "Yes," she whispered. "Just for a few weeks, until everything dies down. Then we can explain that we're parting peacefully." Eli's mind reeled. "You want me," he said slowly, "to stand beside you in front of cameras and pretend we're repairing things?" She nodded weakly. "It would help both of us. People love redemption stories." Eli didn't raise his voice. He didn't lash out. He didn't insult her. He simply looked at her with a steadiness she had never seen before. "No," he said plainly. She froze. "Eli." "No," he repeated. "I'm not faking anything. Not anymore. But this isn't just about you." "It is," he said evenly. "Because I'm the one who stood at that altar. I'm the one who lost something real that day. I'm not going to lie again. I'm not going to clean up messes for appearances." She swallowed. "People will drag me." "They already are," he replied. "But that's the consequence of not telling the truth sooner." Her mother stepped forward angrily. "You owe our family at least." Eli turned toward her calmly. "I owe you kindness. I don't owe you lies." His ex's eyes filled with tears, not manipulative, not dramatic, just tired. "I didn't come to fight," she whispered. "I came because I'm scared." "I know," he said softly. "But pretending won't fix that. So, what now?" she asked, voice trembling. "Now," he said gently. "You move on honestly, and so do I." Her breath shuddered. "Is there someone else?" He didn't falter. "There's someone who treated me with compassion when I was at my lowest. Someone who didn't want anything from me." Her eyes closed slowly. "Amira." "Yes," he said. "And do you like her?" He didn't rush the answer. "Yes," he said softly. "I do." His ex pressed her lips together, fighting emotion. "I hope she treats you better than I did," she whispered. "She already does," he said. His ex inhaled shakily. "Good, you deserve that." Her mother looked stunned, but she stayed silent. Eli stepped forward, not close enough to touch her, but close enough to acknowledge their shared past. "I don't hate you," he said. "I never will. But I'm moving forward. Honestly." She nodded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. "Goodbye, Eli," she whispered. "Goodbye," he replied. And he meant it. As he walked out of the lounge, he felt something lift from his chest. Something heavy that had been lingering since the moment she turned away at the altar. It wasn't pain. It wasn't anger. It wasn't regret. It was relief. Real, grounded relief. He finally had the truth. He finally had closure. And he finally knew where he wanted to go next. Toward Amira. The moment Eli left the conference lounge, a strange calm settled over him. Not numbness, clarity. Closure had a certain weight to it, but it also brought a grounded kind of freedom. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't dragging around a version of himself built to satisfy other people. He had spoken the truth to the woman he almost married. Now, he needed to speak the truth to the man who shaped him, his father. As he exited the building, he saw the town car idling at the curb. His father was clearly waiting for him, impatient and ready to unleash an opinion he believed was necessary. Eli walked toward the car. Before he could reach for the handle, his father stepped out, adjusting his coat sharply. "What was that?" his father demanded without greeting. "I hear your ex-fiancée was upstairs, and you dismissed her request. Are you trying to ruin yourself?" Eli didn't react. She wanted a public act to fix appearances. "I told her no," his father scoffed harshly. "Of course you did, because you're thinking with your emotions again. That's the problem. You keep making choices based on feelings instead of logic." Eli's jaw tightened. "I'm not doing a staged reconciliation. This isn't about emotions." His father snapped. "It's about reputation. You think running a company is just signing contracts and posing for photos? Your personal life affects everything. Investors are already concerned. Then they can leave if they want," Eli said calmly. "I'm not lying for them." His father's eyes widened. "Do you hear yourself? You sound reckless." Eli shook his head slowly. "No, I sound honest." His father stepped closer, lowering his voice but sharpening his tone. "You posted a statement defending that woman. Her name is Amira." "Yes, the hospital worker," his father continued. "You defended her in front of the world without consulting anyone. And for what? She's not part of our industry. She can't help you recover from this scandal." "She didn't cause the scandal," Eli said, unflinching. "She didn't stand me up. She didn't ask for any of this noise. She was dragged into it because I walked into her life." His father folded his arms. "You have responsibilities, Eli. You don't get to put your reputation in the hands of someone who has nothing to lose." Eli felt something inside him snap, not in anger but in exhaustion. "I'm not putting my reputation in anyone's hands," Eli said. "I'm letting go of the idea that my reputation matters more than the truth." His father scoffed again. "That's how people lose everything." "No," Eli countered. "That's how people finally stop living for headlines." His father looked at him as if seeing someone unfamiliar. "You were raised to think strategically, to protect the Turner name, to hold yourself above the chaos of the world. And look where it got me," Eli said, voice low. "A wedding built on pressure, a life built around pretending, a reputation that required me to silence everything human about myself." His father narrowed his eyes. "So this is about being human now?" "Yes," Eli said simply. "This woman, Amira, is influencing you. She's reminding me who I actually am." His father took a long breath. "I know you're hurt, but you cannot allow a temporary emotional reaction to shape the rest of your life." Eli stepped forward, closing the space between them in a steady, deliberate motion. "This isn't temporary. I'm not interested in a public circus. I'm not interested in pretending my life is perfect. I'm not interested in fixing things with someone who never wanted to marry me in the first place." His father's expression flickered, surprise breaking through the coldness. "And I'm definitely not interested," Eli continued, "in sacrificing someone good, someone honest, someone who showed up for me when no one else did, just to keep a few investors comfortable." His father's voice lowered. "You're choosing that woman over everything we've built." "I'm choosing peace," Eli said. "And if that means choosing her, then yes." Silence hit the air like a stone. For the first time, his father's confidence faltered. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. Eli shook his head. "I've spent years trying to be the son you wanted, the leader you wanted, the public figure you wanted, and all it did was make me miserable." He stepped back, giving himself room to breathe. "I'm done sacrificing people who matter to me for a reputation that keeps me empty." His father stared, unable to process the shift. "What exactly are you planning to do now?" "Live honestly," Eli said. "Apologize when I need to, protect the right people, and build a life I actually recognize." His father slowly lowered his arms. "And what about Amira?" "What about her?" Eli replied calmly. "She's not asking me for anything. She's not trying to gain anything. She just wants honesty and respect, and I want to give her both." "And if the media continues dragging you?" his father challenged. "Then let them," Eli said. "They'll get bored eventually. They always do." His father scoffed once more, but this time it lacked conviction. "You're choosing a woman from a world that has nothing to do with ours." Eli's voice softened. "Maybe that's exactly why she sees me clearly." His father opened his mouth as if to object, then closed it. For the first time in years, he didn't have a counter-argument ready. After a long minute, he said, "If you continue down this path, don't expect me to clean up after you. I never asked you to, Eli said, and it wasn't disrespectful, it was freeing. His father stared at him, unable to find footing in this new version of his son. Finally, he turned, got into the car, and shut the door. The driver pulled away, leaving Eli standing on the sidewalk, alone, but not lonely. Not anymore. He exhaled deeply. He had chosen truth over performance, peace over pressure, integrity over headlines, Amira over the expectations of powerful people who didn't care about his well-being. For the first time in his adult life, he wasn't living for an audience. He was living for himself. He pulled out his phone and typed a message. Eli, when you're free, I want to talk. No pressure, just want to hear your voice. He hesitated, then sent it. As he pocketed the phone and walked down the street, a calm certainty settled into him. He wasn't choosing Amira because she rescued him that night. He was choosing her because she represented the kind of life he wanted, honest, steady, grounded. And he finally understood. Reputation can crumble. Public opinion can change overnight. But peace is priceless. And he was ready to fight for it. Amira knew something was different the moment she walked through the door of her apartment that evening. Her mother, who usually hummed while cooking or folded laundry with the TV playing softly in the background, sat silently on the couch. The lamp beside her cast a warm glow, but her expression held tension. Mom? Amira asked gently. You okay? Her mother patted the seat beside her. Come sit. Amira set down her bag and sat next to her, unsure what conversation waited for her. Her mother took a breath. Baby, I saw everything online today. Amira's shoulders sagged. Yeah. It's been a lot. I also saw what that young man posted, her mother added. About you. About protecting your name. Amira looked down at her hands. It was kind, unexpected. Yes, her mother said. But kindness doesn't erase the fact that he just came out of something huge. A wedding, a breakup, a whole world watching his every move. Amira swallowed hard. I know. Her mother placed a warm hand on hers. I need to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. Okay, do you feel like you're stepping into a mess that isn't yours? Amira didn't answer immediately. Her mother continued softly. Because I don't want to see you get hurt, Mimi. You've worked too hard, carried too much, survived too much, to be caught in something that started before you ever showed up. Amira exhaled shakily. I've thought about that. I figured, her mother murmured. Amira leaned back, resting her head against the cushion. It scares me, Mom, not because I think he's using me, but because everything around him is loud, complicated. It feels like standing in the path of a moving train. Her mother nodded. That's the world of wealthy folk. Decisions ripple differently there. I didn't ask for any of this, Amira whispered. I didn't want attention. I didn't want rumors. I just helped someone who needed help. And now, her mother said gently, that same someone is in your life in a way you didn't expect. Amira's eyes lowered. He's been good to me, honest, patient. But I don't want to be his comfort blanket after heartbreak. I refuse to be anyone's rebound. I won't carry the weight of someone trying to recover from a broken engagement. You shouldn't, her mother agreed. And he needs to know that clearly. Amira nodded. I think I need to talk to him. Then talk, her mother said softly. You're grown. You know how to set boundaries. You've always known. An hour later, Amira texted Eli. Amira, can we talk? In person. His reply came quickly. Eli. Yes. Name the place. She thought for a moment, then typed, Amira, Lawson's Cafe. Outside seating. Eli. On my way. When she arrived, the patio was quiet, lit by the soft glow of string lights hanging from the fence. A few customers lingered at nearby tables, sipping warm drinks. Eli stood as soon as he saw her approach, but he didn't smile, not out of coldness, but because he sensed a heaviness in her posture. Hi, he said softly. Hi. They sat across from each other, a small wooden table between them. A gentle breeze moved past, rustling the napkins stacked near the condiments. Eli leaned forward slightly, reading her expression. Something's wrong. Amira looked down, gathering her thoughts before speaking. We need to talk about everything, she said. The noise, the attention, the timing. He nodded. Okay. She took a breath. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. You have my honesty, he said quietly. She held his gaze. Am the first a rebound? His chest tightened, not with guilt, but with the fear of losing her. No, he said immediately. Eli, she said firmly, think before you answer. You just came out of a broken engagement. You're still in the news. Your ex came back asking for a public reconciliation. Everything is loud. And then, there's me. You're not a rebound, he repeated, slower this time, more intentional. But how do you know that? She asked. How do you know this isn't your heart grabbing onto the first steady thing it found after everything fell apart? He sat back, absorbing her words. That's a fair question, he said softly. And you deserve an answer rooted in truth. She waited. When I met you in that walkway, he began, I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't thinking about healing or moving on. I wasn't capable of it. I was drowning. He paused, steadying himself. But what you gave me wasn't a distraction, he continued. It wasn't romance. It wasn't comfort in the cheap sense. You gave me humanity. You reminded me I was a person when everyone else treated me like a headline. Her eyes softened, but she kept listening. And after that night, he said, I didn't feel pulled to you out of pain. I felt pulled because of who you are. Because you're real. Because you don't ask for anything from me. Because you see me. He leaned in slightly, voice low and sincere. If I wanted a rebound, I could have found a dozen meaningless ways to escape my feelings. I didn't do that. I chose you, not because you're convenient, but because being around you makes me calm, makes me better. Amira's breath caught. He continued, if you want to slow down, I will. If you need space, I'll give it. But don't ever believe you're a replacement for something that never should have happened in the first place. She stared at him, heart shifting in her chest. He added gently, I'm not trying to move on from something. I'm trying to move towards something, toward you. Her throat tightened. She wiped a tear she hadn't expected to shed. I didn't want to walk away, but I needed to be sure. I understand, he said. And I'm glad you said something instead of disappearing. Communication matters, she murmured. And you matter, he replied. A long, quiet moment settled between them, gentle, warm, grounding. The kind of silence that didn't push or rush. The kind that felt like agreement without being spoken aloud. She reached across the table slowly and placed her hand on his. He looked down at their hands, then back at her with something soft in his eyes. I'm not going anywhere, she said quietly. Neither am I, he replied. They sat like that for several seconds, two adults choosing clarity over confusion, honesty over assumptions, truth over fear. For the first time, the path between them felt mutual, intentional, and unforced. Not rushed, not clouded, not tangled in past wounds. Just real. And that made all the difference. Love didn't arrive for them in fireworks or dramatic speeches. It arrived quietly, in little decisions, in shared routines, in the way they chose each other on regular days when nothing special was happening. After their conversation at Lawson's Cafe, something subtle shifted between Eli and Amira. They didn't suddenly start calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend. They didn't rush toward labels, but the way they moved around each other changed. Their messages felt warmer. Their calls lasted longer. Their time together became less about recovery and more about discovery. One Saturday afternoon, Eli texted, Eli, do you have a few free hours today? I promise no fancy restaurants, no photographers, no drama. Just actual life. Amira, depends. Does actual life involve me wearing real shoes or the slides I keep by the door? Eli, slides are absolutely allowed. She smiled down at her phone. Amira, okay, I'm free after 3. Eli, I'll meet you at your place. We'll work from there. At 3:15 p.m., Eli knocked on her apartment door, dressed in a simple hoodie and black joggers. No expensive watch, no styled hair, just him, comfortable and relaxed. Amira opened the door in leggings, an oversized t-shirt, and those slides she'd mentioned. Her hair was pulled up, and she had that end-of-week tiredness around her eyes, but she still gave him a genuine smile. Wow, he said, grinning. You really committed to the slides. Listen, she replied. These slides have seen things. They've been through battles. Show some respect. He laughed, stepping inside and taking in the cozy living room. The blanket draped over the couch, the small bookshelf with worn novels and medical textbooks, the framed photo of her and her mom smiling at a barbecue. This feels like you, he said softly. Messy but functional, she joked. Warm and real, he corrected. She rolled her eyes playfully. Okay, poet. What's this actual life thing you promised? He held up a small paper bag. First, I brought snacks. Second, I thought maybe we cook together. She blinked. You cook? I can follow a recipe, he said. Mostly. So you can read, she teased. Barely, he replied. But I make it work. She smiled, already feeling the ease between them. They moved into the kitchen, which was small but well used. Amira pulled ingredients from the fridge while Eli opened the paper bag, revealing pasta, vegetables, and a jar of sauce from a local Italian market. You came prepared, she said. I had help picking things, he admitted. The lady at the store basically designed this entire meal. I just nodded. Smart man, she said. Let's not insult her by burning it. They worked side by side, bumping shoulders occasionally as they chopped vegetables and boiled water. At one point, Eli tried to toss pasta in the pan the way he'd seen chefs do on cooking shows. Half of it slid right out onto the stove. Amira burst out laughing. Oh no. Oh no. He stared at the noodles, mortified. Okay. That did not go how I pictured it in my head. She grabbed a spatula, still laughing. You owe these noodles an apology. They knew the risks when they signed up, he said. They ended up salvaging most of it, stirring the sauce, tasting the results directly from the spoon. Not bad, she said, surprised. Not bad from a nurse who lives on hospital cafeteria food is basically a Michelin review, he joked. They ate on the couch, plates balanced on their laps, watching a movie that neither of them paid full attention to. They paused often to talk over scenes, share thoughts, and derail into completely different topics. Eli learned that as a kid, Amira used to pretend the stairs at her old apartment were mountains, and she'd narrate hikes just to entertain her younger cousin. Amira learned that Eli once locked himself out of his own office because the building installed a new security system and nobody told him his badge had changed. You're the CEO, she said, laughing. How do you get locked out of your own building? They were scared to tell me they updated the access, he said. So I stood outside calling support like a visitor. She leaned her head back against the couch cushion, laughing more freely than she had in days. For Eli, the sound did something the outside world couldn't touch. It cut through the leftover noise of gossip and headlines and landed somewhere safe inside him. Their dates didn't look like the stories online about wealthy men and grand gestures. Sometimes they just walked. One evening, they strolled through a neighborhood park, hands hovering near each other but not quite touching. Kids played on swings. Elderly couples sat on benches sharing quiet conversation. A man sold ice cream bars from a little cart near the fence. Eli bought them each one. You know this stuff is half ice, half mystery ingredients, Amira said, examining the wrapper. It's childhood nostalgia, he replied. Don't ruin it with logic. She took a bite. Okay, fine. Nostalgia tastes good. They talked about everything and nothing, favorite childhood snacks, music they secretly loved, holidays they dreaded, the weird pressure to have everything figured out by a certain age. Amira confessed, people expect me to be okay with saving everyone and asking for nothing. Like being strong means I never get tired. He nodded. People expect me to be okay with being watched all the time, like success erased my right to have bad days. They shared these truths in soft tones while passing under streetlights, their breaths visible in the evening air. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't curated, but it was real. On another day off, Eli visited the laundromat again, not broken this time, not soaking wet. Just a man carrying a basket of clothes and a quiet smile. Amira looked up from the counter, surprised. You own an in-unit washer and dryer. I know this for a fact. I do, he said. But this laundromat has better company. Her aunt, folding a stack of towels, glanced between them with a knowing look. So this is him, her aunt said. Auntie, Amira muttered under her breath. What? Her aunt replied. I'm just observing. Eli stepped forward respectfully. It's nice to see you again, ma'am. Thank you for not throwing me out the first time I showed up in here. Her aunt raised an eyebrow. You looked like you'd already been thrown out of something. He winced. That's fair. Amira tried not to laugh. They spent an hour there talking between spin cycles. Eli learned more about Amira's family, her aunt's history with the laundromat, how this place had been a small hub for the neighborhood for years. At one point, Amira caught Eli quietly paying for a stranger's laundry card refill at the kiosk when they weren't looking. She didn't call him out on it. She just noticed. It was in these simple moments, shared jokes, silly mistakes, everyday errands, that something deepened quietly inside her. This wasn't a fairy tale. No carriages, no mansions sweeping her off her feet. Just a man who kept showing up, over and over, on time, on purpose. They weren't perfect. There were nights their schedules clashed, and one of them fell asleep before replying. There were days Amira was too drained to talk and sent only a brief message, rough shift, talk tomorrow. Each time, Eli respected it. No guilt trips, no drama, just, Eli, rest. I'm not going anywhere. And he didn't. On the flip side, there were days when something in Eli's world hit too hard. A negative press mention, a board member raising doubts, an old acquaintance treating him like damaged goods after the wedding scandal. He'd text, Eli, today sucked, and she'd answer, Amira, you want to vent or sit in silence on a call? I can do either. Sometimes they talked for an hour. Sometimes they sat on the phone barely speaking, just letting each other's presence fill the space. It wasn't a movie version of love, but it was healthy, intentional, grown. One night as they sat in her living room again, half watching a crime show, half talking, Amira realized something. She wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop anymore. She wasn't bracing herself for suddenly being ignored. She wasn't constantly scanning for signs of dishonesty. She wasn't holding her breath, wondering how long this would last. She was simply in it, engaged in the conversation, comfortable with his presence, content with their pace. He looked over at her, catching her staring. What? He asked, smiling. She shook her head lightly. Nothing. Just thinking. Dangerous, he teased. What were you thinking about? She hesitated, then said, that this feels stable. He blinked, surprised. Stable? In a good way, she clarified. Like I'm not just balancing on someone else's mood. Like I don't have to perform to keep your attention. He felt that. Deeply. You never have to perform for me, he said quietly. Just be who you are. I like who you are too, she admitted. His chest warmed. The show continued playing, but it faded into the background as he shifted slightly closer. Not enough to crowd her, just enough so their shoulders touched. It wasn't electric. It wasn't dramatic. It was right. She didn't move away. She rested her head on his shoulder, and he tilted his head gently against hers. No big speeches, no sudden declarations. Just two people letting their lives overlap without forcing anything. For the first time, it truly felt like the beginning of a relationship, not based on rescue, not based on brokenness, but built on mutual choice. Messy days, soft nights, shared jokes, respect, real love, growing in real time. Amira's life had never been simple, but it had always been predictable. Work, home, family. Her world ran on structure and necessity. But dating, truly dating, someone like Eli introduced a new kind of tension. Not because of him directly, but because of the difference in their worlds and how others perceived that difference. The first sign of trouble arrived on a quiet Wednesday evening. Amira walked into her apartment to find her mother and aunt sitting at the kitchen table, with her younger cousin Nia, who was scrolling through her phone with wide eyes. The second Amira stepped in, they all looked up, too quickly. That was the universal sign that something had already been discussed behind closed doors. Okay, Amira said slowly. What's going on? Her mother exchanged a look with her aunt before speaking. Baby, we need to talk. It's nothing bad, but it's important. Amira placed her bag on the counter and crossed her arms gently. All right, what's this about? Her aunt sighed. People in the neighborhood have been talking. A lot. About what? Amira asked, though she already knew. About you and that rich boy, Nia blurted before her mother shushed her. Amira let out a slow breath. I figured word would get around. Her mother nodded. Not everyone is talking mess. Some folks are cheering for you, especially the aunties who think you pulled the ultimate plot twist. Her aunt added. They're calling him slide boyfriend because you showed up to that cafe date in your house slides. Amira groaned. Please don't tell him that. We won't, her mother promised. But it's more than teasing. Some people are saying you're getting ahead of yourself, that he's too different, that men like him don't stick around. Amira's jaw clenched lightly. People say things. They always have. Her mother nodded. Yes, but now they're saying it loudly, and we're worried about you." Nia scooted forward. "Ma said I should stay out of grown people's business, but I think you look happy. Happier than you've looked in a while." Amira softened slightly at that, but her mother wasn't finished. "There's also family pressure," her mother said delicately. "Your uncle called. He said you need to be careful. He doesn't want to see you get used and tossed aside." Amira sat down, heartbeat tightening. "So everyone's worried I'm not enough for him?" "No," her mother said quickly. "They're worried he isn't enough for you." That caught Amira off guard. Her aunt elaborated, "We know the kind of heart you have. You don't play games. You don't run after shiny things. You've always chosen kindness over convenience. And sometimes that makes you vulnerable." Her mother reached across the table, touching Amira's hand. "We just want to be sure he's steady, not another man who drifts in and out of your life." Amira swallowed, her throat thickening. "He's steady with me. He shows up. He's been honest." Her mother looked at her intently. "But can he handle your world? Can he show up when things get hard here, not just in his world?" That question sat deep inside her chest. Amira knew Eli wasn't the type to be scared of difficulty. He didn't flinch at emotional conversations. He didn't run when things became messy around her. But did he truly understand the weight of her responsibilities, the reality she carried, the pressures that lived in her world long before he arrived? "I think he can," she said softly, "but I need to see him handle something real, something grounded, not just private conversations or cozy nights." Her aunt nodded. "Then give him the chance." 2 days later, that chance arrived unexpectedly. Nia had a small school event, a parent-student showcase she had worked on for weeks. Amira promised she would be there since her mother had a late shift, but at the last minute, the hospital reassigned Amira to stay overtime due to a staff shortage. She panicked the moment she saw the message. "Nia's showcase is at 6, she whispered to herself, checking the time. It was 4:55 p.m. There was no way she'd get across town in time. She texted her mother, "Amira, I'm stuck at work. Can you make it?" "Mom, baby, I'm already clocked in. I can't leave." Her stomach tightened. She texted Nia, "Amira, I'm trying to get out early, but it's not looking good." A sad face emoji came through. That broke her heart. Her cousin rarely asked for much. She was proud of the small projects she created at school, and she adored Amira deeply. Missing this moment felt painfully heavy. Amira stepped into the break room, pressing her fingertips against her temples. She didn't want to ask Eli. She really didn't. This wasn't his responsibility. This wasn't his world. This wasn't the kind of moment a new relationship usually survived. But she also couldn't let Nia down without trying everything. With a shaking breath, she messaged him, "Amira, this is asking a lot, and you can say no, but Nia has a school showcase at 6. I can't get out of work. My mom can't either. Is there any chance you could go, just to show support? It would mean a lot to her. I understand if it's too much." She stared at the screen, bracing for, "I'm busy. I can't make it." That's too last minute. Instead, "Eli, send me the address. I'm going." Her breath caught. "Amira, you don't have to." "Eli, I'm going. No debate. Send it." Hands trembling slightly, she sent the location. At 6:02 p.m., Eli walked into the school gymnasium wearing a simple button-down shirt, jeans, and a warm jacket. The space smelled faintly of paint and glue from the students' presentation boards. Parents filled the rows of folding chairs, chatting and taking pictures. He scanned the room until he spotted Nia standing near her display, looking disappointed, chewing on her lip. He approached gently. "Hey," he said softly. She looked up, startled. "Eli, what are you doing here?" "Your cousin couldn't make it," he said, "but I promised her you wouldn't stand here alone." Her eyes widened. "She asked you to come?" "She hoped someone could be here for you," he replied. "And I'm honored it gets to be me." Her face brightened in a way that could melt steel. "Want to show me your project?" he asked. Nia nodded vigorously, grabbing his hand and dragging him toward her display. For the next 20 minutes, Eli listened with genuine interest as she explained every hand-drawn chart, every painted detail, every sentence she'd practiced in the mirror. He asked questions. He encouraged her. He clapped when she finished her little speech and snapped a picture to send to Amira. At one point, another parent leaned over and whispered to Nia, Is that your dad? Nia nearly choked. No, that's my cousin's. She paused, looked up at Eli, then said quietly, proudly, that's someone important. He smiled down at her, touched. Later that night, after the event ended and Eli walked Nia to her grandmother's car, he received a message from Amira. Amira, Nia called me screaming. Screaming, in joy. She said you clapped louder than anyone. Eli. She deserved the applause. Amira, thank you. Truly. Eli. Anytime. There was a pause before another message came through. Amira. Eli. You showed up. Not for me. For her. For my family. I don't even know what to say. He typed, Eli. You carry so much. I'm here to carry what I can with you. Her eyes filled instantly. She realized then, more clearly than ever, that Eli wasn't just kind in private moments or when their connection was easy. He was consistent, gentle, reliable, present. He wasn't scared of her world. He wasn't intimidated by her family. He wasn't pretending to be someone he wasn't. He was proving himself quietly, intentionally, and in that moment, something in her heart unlocked, something soft, something new, something steady. She wasn't falling for a fantasy. She was falling for a real man. A man who showed up. The shift came gradually, not overnight, not in a sudden headline, but in quiet ways. The buzz around Eli's personal life began fading. Reporters moved on to fresher scandals. Trending pages focused on new celebrity drama. The wedding fiasco slipped lower in the cycle until it was barely mentioned. It wasn't because everything magically resolved. It simply stopped being interesting. People got tired. News changed direction. And Eli no longer fed the cycle. For the first time in months, calm settled over his life. But the real peace didn't come from the public losing interest. It came from the growing steadiness between him and Amira. One afternoon, a coworker of Amira's approached her at the nurse's station with a light smile. So, looks like the gossip blogs are done dragging you, Layla said. Thank goodness, Amira replied, scanning a chart on her tablet. Honestly, Layla added, leaning closer, I think your guy shutting it down himself helped. People couldn't twist the story after he spoke up. Amira's cheeks warmed slightly. He's not my guy. Not officially. Layla smirked. Girl, please. That man showed up for your cousin like she was royalty. If that's not your guy, I don't know what is. Amira didn't argue, not because she accepted the label, but because the truth was settling gently inside her. He was becoming her person. Slowly, carefully, with intention. In Eli's world, the same shift was happening. During a board meeting, one of the executives pulled him aside afterward. I'm glad things have quieted down, the man said. We were worried at first, but you handled everything responsibly. Eli raised a brow. Responsibly? Yes. You didn't overreact. You didn't lash out. You addressed the rumors honestly, then moved on. Eli nodded. There wasn't anything else to do. We're relieved, the executive added. And for what it's worth, the woman you defended seems like someone who cares about you. That says more than any PR statement could. Eli blinked, slightly surprised. Thank you. The man patted his shoulder. Focus on your happiness. The rest will follow. Eli left the building with a lighter step. It was strange. After a lifetime of pressure to perform, the idea that someone simply wanted him to be happy felt foreign. Foreign, but welcome. In their private world, the peace grew even clearer. One Friday night, Amira invited him over for dinner, her cooking this time. She prepared a simple meal, baked chicken, vegetables, and cornbread she learned to make from her aunt. Eli sat at her kitchen table watching her move around the stove with ease. You know, he said, smiling, I'm still recovering from dropping that pasta the other day. She giggled softly. I still think about that. Those noodles went through something. They're in a better place now, he replied, dramatically lowering his voice. Rest in peace, brave soldiers. She nearly burned the cornbread laughing. After dinner, they sat on the couch watching a comedy special, and Amira leaned into him without thinking. Her head rested comfortably against his chest. His arm wrapped around her shoulder, drawing her closer. It was effortless. It was natural. It was theirs. Not performance, not tension, not pressure. Just connection, a real one. Over the next few weeks, the outside world faded further into the background. If a small article popped up about Eli's previous wedding, It lasted only a few hours before disappearing. Mentions of Amira had nearly vanished. Even the paparazzi stopped showing up around his building. The quiet allowed them to spend time without constantly looking over their shoulders. They went grocery shopping together once, laughing over which cereal had the least sugar. They spent an afternoon helping Amira's aunt fix a jammed dryer at the laundromat. They even attended one of Nia's basketball games, cheering from the back row. Each moment, small and unassuming, stitched itself into something sturdy between them, something they didn't need the world to validate. One evening near the end of the month, Eli invited Amira to his penthouse, not for anything fancy, just a calm night in with takeout and music playing softly in the background. She walked around his living room, taking in the view of the city below. "You know," she said, "your place looks like something from a magazine. It's beautiful." Eli chuckled. "It's too clean, too quiet. It's peaceful," she said. "Peaceful because you're here," he replied softly. She looked up, meeting his eyes. He didn't say it to impress her. He said it because it was true. He walked closer, stopping just in front of her. "You've given me a life I didn't know I needed," he said quietly. "A life that feels human." She swallowed gently. "I haven't done anything special." "You've done everything," he said. "You've shown me what real kindness looks like, what honesty feels like, what choosing someone day after day actually means." She didn't speak. She didn't need to. He took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Amira," he whispered, "I don't care what the world says or doesn't say. I just care about this, about you, about us." Her heart warmed at the certainty in his voice. "I care about us too," she said softly. They stood like that for a moment, the city lights glowing around them like a quiet celebration. No cameras, no headlines, no gossip, just peace, private and mutual, the kind that grows when two people choose each other without needing an audience. On the bus ride home later that night, Amira sat by the window watching the city blur past. She rested her head against the cool glass and let herself smile. The world had finally calmed. Her heart had finally steadied. And Eli had become a consistent part of her rhythm, not because he swept her into luxury, not because he made grand promises, but because he made space for her, and she made space for him. Real love wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was built one truthful moment at a time. And that's exactly what they were building, together. A full year passed, quietly, steadily, intentionally, not in grand leaps, not in dramatic waves, but in small, meaningful steps that built a life Amira and Eli didn't know they were capable of until they chose it together. 12 months earlier, they were two strangers stitched together by a difficult moment behind a laundromat. Today, they were partners with an established rhythm, a rhythm rooted in honesty, care, patience, and real-world balance. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. It simply became livable in a deeper, more fulfilling way. Most weekdays began the same. At 6:15 a.m., Amira's alarm buzzed softly on her nightstand. She'd stretch, rub her eyes, and roll out of bed before the snooze button whispered temptation. On mornings when Eli stayed at her apartment, he'd already be in her small kitchen, making a simple breakfast, eggs, toast, or oatmeal, nothing complicated. She teased him often. "Millionaire chef, huh?" "Barely," he'd reply. "But I'm improving." Sometimes he'd pack her lunch. Other times he'd sit at the table while she braided her hair in front of the mirror, drinking his coffee and listening to her talk about her shift ahead. Their mornings were never flashy. They were peaceful, predictable, a stark contrast to the chaotic beginnings they shared a year ago. Most evenings, Amira came home exhausted. The pediatric floor remained demanding, the little victories and heavy losses shaping her days with emotional intensity. But each night, Eli made sure she never carried the weight alone. If she had a bad day, he'd listen without interrupting. He'd hold her when she needed silence. He'd cook or bring dinner without being asked. If she had a great day, he celebrated with genuine excitement. He asked questions. He thanked her for the work she did in the world. Their evenings consisted of shared meals, movies on the couch, helping her mom with groceries, visiting Nia's school events, or walking through the park after dinner. Simple things, ordinary things, things that mattered. They didn't rush into labels. The word love wasn't thrown around lightly. Instead, they treated their relationship like a shared garden, tended, daily, allowed to grow naturally, respected through each season. By month 7, They had settled into a rhythm that felt like home. Amira didn't hide her world. She invited Eli into it, into the laundromat, her family gatherings, her community events. He wasn't a visitor. He learned the names, the stories, the struggles. He helped Nia with math homework. He lent his business voice to her aunt when property taxes threatened the laundromat's future. He didn't try to fix their lives. He simply became part of them. And Amira became part of his. In the past 12 months, Eli had changed in ways he hadn't expected. He became more human, more grounded, more aware of the world beyond headlines and quarterly reports. He attended therapy for the first time ever, something he had resisted his entire adult life. He wanted to understand why he had ignored his own needs for years. He wanted to break patterns instead of repeating them. He took a step back from the constant grind, delegated more, set boundaries with his father, firm ones. When his father pressured him again to prioritize image over authenticity, Eli calmly replied, "I'm not losing myself for a headline again." And he meant it. He learned to say no. He learned to rest. He learned that intimacy wasn't in grand gestures. It was in small moments of presence. As for Amira, she blossomed in ways she didn't even realize. She earned a supervisory position at the hospital after consistently showing leadership and empathy on the floor. She didn't campaign for it. Leadership came naturally to her. Her co-workers respected her, her patients adored her, and the administration saw her worth clearly. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. She also began taking one weekend off each month just for herself, something she'd never allowed before. Eli encouraged it, not by insisting, but by supporting her desire to rest. "You can't pour from an empty cup," he told her one night as they planned a mini getaway. "Let yourself breathe." She did. A year ago, Amira didn't trust easily. Her past taught her caution, but Eli's steady presence gave her room to trust again, not blindly, but with wisdom. He earned that trust every day, never demanding it, always respecting it. Her family loved him. Her mother joked, "That man better never get tired of this family. We come in a group package." Her aunt often tossed him chores at the laundromat. "Mr. Millionaire, grab that detergent box for me," she'd say, and he'd laugh and help without hesitation. Nia bragged to her friends, "My cousin's guy is cool. He showed up to every game, every single one." Eli fit in, not because of his money, but because he was present, humble, and genuine. They didn't post their relationship online. They didn't seek approval from strangers. They didn't chase drama. Their love existed quietly, rooted in truth, nurtured through consistency, strengthened by two worlds learning to coexist. A year later, Amira sat on her couch one evening with Eli beside her, her head resting on his shoulder. They had just finished dinner, takeout from the Caribbean spot they recently discovered, and the room glowed with warm lamplight. "No noise," he murmured. "No headlines," she replied. "Just us." She lifted her head slightly, looking at him. "Thank you for giving me a year of peace." He brushed a thumb across her hand. "Thank you for giving me a year of honesty." They shared a slow smile, the kind that came from deep gratitude, not infatuation. No fairy tale, no fantasy. Just two grown adults choosing each other daily, not because life forced them together, but because life felt better with the other in it. Their love didn't shout. It didn't grandstand. It simply existed. Warm, steady, real. And that was the future they were building, one grounded decision at a time. A year may seem like a long time, but when healing is involved, it moves in its own rhythm. And love, mature, grounded love, grows on the same timeline. Looking back, Eli and Amira could see the transformation clearly. Not dramatic highs or sudden turns, but gradual changes shaped by truth, patience, and vulnerability. Their story wasn't built on fantasy. It wasn't built on luxury or spectacle. It was built on two people choosing to show up day after day, even when life felt heavy. And through their journey, several powerful lessons emerged, lessons that echo far beyond their personal story. Eli didn't earn Amira's trust through grand gestures. He earned it through honesty, through listening, through saying, "I'm here," even when his own life was messy. Amira didn't win his heart with perfection. She won it with sincerity, with steadiness, with the courage to express her boundaries and let him rise to the occasion. Honesty built their foundation, slowly, carefully, genuinely. Love expands in environments where truth can breathe, where fear can be spoken out loud, where neither person has to hide their flaws. Real love isn't loud, it's rooted. Amira wasn't supposed to be anywhere near that alleyway when Eli disappeared from his wedding. She wasn't meant to witness his lowest moment. But life has a way of offering comfort through the least predictable door. She became the one person who didn't ask for anything. No explanations, no status, no performance. Just presence and warmth. And he became the one person who showed her what partnership felt like, not in fantasy, but in the real world. Sometimes the most meaningful people in our lives enter quietly, without warning, carrying the exact kind of care we didn't know we needed. Eli didn't heal in a mansion or a luxury retreat. He healed sitting on the cold ground behind a laundromat. He healed when someone wrapped him in compassion instead of judgment. Amira didn't heal in a dramatic whirlwind romance. She healed through consistent kindness, through being seen, through being valued without conditions. Healing doesn't always come in grand waves. Sometimes it begins in quiet moments, unexpected, unpolished, deeply human. Eli had wealth, influence, and access, but none of it shielded him from emotional pain. None of it prevented the public embarrassment of a wedding gone wrong. None of it provided the comfort he found in Amira's simple embrace. Heartbreak does not discriminate. It reaches everyone, whether you live in a penthouse or a small apartment. What matters isn't how much you have, but who stands with you when everything feels uncertain, and who allows you to stand with them too. Both of them had reasons to walk away early on. Eli could have protected his public image instead of defending Amira. Amira could have run the moment she feared being a rebound. Eli could have bowed to his father's pressure. Amira could have refused to trust someone from a completely different world. But maturity taught them something simple. Peace matters more than appearances. Truth matters more than pride. Love matters more than ego. Instead of performing for the world, they chose to grow for each other. Instead of demanding perfection, they embraced effort. Instead of letting fear lead, they allowed honesty in. And that's why their love survived, not because it was perfect, but because it was chosen, every single day. On a warm Sunday afternoon, Eli and Amira walked hand in hand through the same park they used during their earliest conversations. Children played nearby, families picnicked, and soft shadows stretched across the grass. They stopped beneath a tree, watching sunlight flicker through the branches. Eli looked at her, his voice gentle. 1 year, she nodded with that soft smile he cherished. 1 year of real life. No scandals, no headlines, he said. No noise, she added. Just us. She leaned into him. He wrapped an arm around her, steady and warm. They didn't need to say anything else. Their peace spoke for them. In that moment, they weren't a love story shaped by rumor. They weren't a couple defined by drama or gossip. They were just two people who met in life's most fragile moment and decided to build something steady anyway. A love that wasn't born from fantasy, but forged through truth. And that is what made it last. Bestie, thank you for watching this story until the end. If this journey touched your heart, even a little, please tap that like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. Your support helps this channel grow, and it means the world to me. More beautiful stories are coming. This is just the beginning.